What's good, everybody, and welcome to Bridge the Gap, the interview show over here at Behind That Suit, where our main focus is to bridge that gap of knowledge and to teach the people, folks, based on our life experiences and stuff. Joining me today is a very special guest, in my opinion, Mr. Don Dada, a name that anybody that knows him puts respect on it, okay? Merker says what's up, just so you know, Merker Music is up in here. Respect is always put on this man's name anytime I've heard it. So I'm going to do my little thing. I think it's a good start to give you flowers. It's a good way to start these interviews. So the first person I saw in Montreal this year to have a track break 100,000 was Don Dada. And that was Smile with Travis Bryant and Justine, whatever. But what I thought was super cool was that it said Don Dada in the credits that I saw as an artist. So I was able to click back and discover who he was. Now that made me go, this guy's smart right off the jump, because he was clickable and I was able to find him. And then I found him on Instagram at some point or another. And I've been watching the stuff he puts out, but also the graphic, right? So when you look at that little cartoon version, like I actually didn't know what he looked like in real life until he sent me the picture for the fucking thing, because I didn't really look that deep. But it was really like there was almost this illusion of Don Dada, this music producer person, created on this cartoon Kanye-esque graphic that I saw that was super fucking cool. But really it was talking to Travis Bryant. Now, I don't know if you ever had a moment where somebody talks up somebody else and the passion they put into describing that person is just so fucking paramount that like you just feel the need to talk to this person. Well, that's what happened with Travis. He said that you were in touch with the music. You told him to stop rapping on Smile because it was done. It didn't need more. And the song knocked out the fucking park. Really did well. Really is enjoyable tune to this day. I can still listen to it. It's a banger. But also he described the way that you visualize things beyond beats. It's more of an artistic package. It's more of an entire universe and an entire ensemble of things. And here's the thing. I don't want this show to just be me talking to a bunch of rappers along the way without exploring every part of what makes music going well. And I think looking at you helped me kind of evaluate myself. So moving forward with my guy, my sound dude does all the work, right? Like he makes the beats. He's half the song, right? Like I'm gonna be real with you. I'm kind of selfish if I'm not putting his fucking names up in the artist credits. So moving forward, I'm actually gonna do that shit where I credit him as like part of the thing. Why? Because I saw you doing it. I saw other people doing it, and I realized it's only fair. Y'all are artists with this shit in it with us, and I think we all need to give more love to producers.
1,000,000%.
That's why it's such a pleasure to have you here. I can't say you're the first producer, but you are the first producer from Montreal that's up on this channel, so that's a huge thing for me, and that's fucking blessed. So I'm real glad to have you all here. Shout out Willie for being in the chats. Anyway, my goal with this thing is to kind of talk to you, walk through your story, to take any tangential breaks along the way to explore the different facets of what makes you interesting and versatile. Because again, we don't all know you. Unfortunately, in this world, Wikipedias and things aren't kind to guys in our tier of life. So that's the goal of this, is pretend like we're filling out a Wikipedia article as we go through your journey. And that's it. As much detail you want to put out, that's it. As long as it takes, if it's part one of many, that's what it ends up being. This is time to get your story on the wax as we bridge the gap about Don Dada. Shout out to everybody watching before we begin. So I'm going to start with my first question. It's a bit of a staple now. So everybody kind of gets the same one, but I like it, and it gets a little bigger as time goes on. So it starts with my girlfriend washing dishes. I like stories. So, she was listening to that I Got a Feeling track there from the Black Eyed Peas. I can't remember the name of it ever, but that one. But what I remember about that is being 22 in the clubs with the circle of people jumping around, bouncing. But now it's dishes music, and it's hype dishes music. It is what it is. That shit came on when I'm watching it, because it brings me back to that era. And I realized that yesterday's club hit is tomorrow's chore music. But then I also realized along the way that there's, as I started asking people this question, that there's other vibes and shit out there. There's car music, there's fucking, whatever musics that are around you. But then I also realized, attached to all this, that when we think about your musical journey, people often start it with, what are your influences? And I'm like, nah, that's too late in the story. It goes back. It goes back to what your parents made you listen to. And if you have siblings, what your siblings made, that's the new edition. I was reading the Gucci Mane book today, and Gucci Mane's brother was a huge source of his music. I never asked about siblings before. So in general, what I want to understand is a very young Don Dada in his household. What was the music that was chores music, the car music, just the different vibes that really started your musical journey?
Well, the early music that I heard in the household was a lot of Arabic stuff, a lot of folk music, a lot of the local pop music at the time. So it's basically a variety, a good gradient, but mostly Arab music. It's when I
Okay.
immigrated. It's when I immigrated to Canada around the age of 4. Is when I really got introduced to, at the time, was the sounds of Montreal in terms of like the dance, the house that they had, or the early, I would say early dance music. You know what I mean? That was
So I
coming
have
out.
a quick question. Where were you
Yeah,
born?
I was born in Kuwait, but I'm Lebanese. It's just that my father used to work out in Kuwait with contracting and things like that, and he had my mom fly out for a weekend, and then I was born on that Monday. You know what
That's
I mean?
crazy.
Yeah,
That's so interesting.
yeah. And then I proceeded to live in Egypt for the first 3 years of my life, and then came here. So it's like quite a little quite a little trajectory getting where I am today.
Yo, but that's mad nifty stills.
Mm.
I mean, does that mean you can like head back to Kuwait or things like that? Like, do you have some kind of dual citizenship type shit? I don't know how any of that really works.
Not with Kuwait because they're more of a kingdom, so it's more on bloodline and land ownership. So no, in that case, my pops at the time, he was just contractor, foreign contractor. So no, they what they do is they don't charge you for the hospital bill. That's one thing that's cool. But no, there's no citizenship or anything involved unless you're really from the people. Both your
Fair enough.
parents got to be from there.
And so, when you did come to Montreal or Canada, was it Montreal?
Yeah,
And what part of Montreal was that?
West Island, my man. Straight to
Fresh.
Pureful. Yeah,
I
straight to Pure.
respect that. I spent some time out in that part of. My mom's in Purefond right now, so it's like big. It's like a second home base to me.
Right.
All right, cool. So let's go back to the pop sounds. You were listening to a lot of that when you came
Yeah.
to Montreal, and I cut you off, but it was super curious. So what kind
All
of
good.
Montreal influences were added to that? Because straight off the jump, we have this, I guess, Arabic influence, which is interesting, right?
Right. Well, from the get, there was a lot of like when you say chore music, when the cleanup goes and the vacuum goes on, the music goes even louder than that. You know what I mean? So the house really shakes with that rhythm, and from a young age, you get to see that music is like a resort and outlet to whether it's sad or happy, whatever, a whole wide variety of emotions or state of minds that you might be in or things you might be doing, actions, and then that kind of imprinted, I guess like or seeded, I say, like a liking to music itself. Already that like my background was pretty much forming itself to become an artist on multiple avenues, like meaning multiple different medias, painting, drawing, music, all of that. I guess
So you're
that's
doing
what,
all that as a kid?
yeah,
Like
till
how
now,
young?
bro. As far as I can remember, like 3 years old. Like it all started with scribble scrabbles and then listening to music to sketching and then playing on a Casio to making little graffiti pieces in notebooks and playing the Fender Squire, you know what I mean? Playing a little bass, and then eventually writing a 1-2 rhyme to fully producing, you know what I mean? And then
I mean,
here I
that's
am. Yeah.
so we got to definitely expand into that. That's the goal of this is to
Mm.
cover the details of this crazy journey. Cause yo, right off the jump though, for those that are just joining us, what we've learned is the guy from the very beginning was artistically inclined in multiple genres of stuff. So drawing, I'm taking it, as well as playing musical instruments as well. So Casio's a keyboard, right?
Yeah. Like a Casio keyboard, the one that comes with like preloaded sounds and it
Were
plays and
your
everything. If
were your
you
parents or any were your parents or anything involved with music at that time, or was it just like you were
uh,
just organically drawn to it yourself?
well, I was organically drawn to it myself, I would say, because like I don't have any musicians in the family. I'm really the first musician and one of the rare artists, I'd even say, like in the family, but honestly, the only musician, let alone taking it seriously and whatnot.
Yeah, it's crazy.
Um, that also played a lot into me trailblazing my own path, my own way. Like e- even it mimicked the household. When you're like the eldest sibling, how you eat the shit first and you
Yes,
pave the way for the second one. I
yes,
feel, I feel like
yes.
feel like I ate that on multiple levels, like even with like under that household. You know what I mean? That and the music and the fact that like they weren't used to that. Like you know,
So I can
especially that they saw
actually
the fact that I have the potential to do the typical shit. You know what I mean? That
I connect with what
is
you're
what I
saying
wanted.
fucking heavy. It really
Mm.
resonates a lot with my story. Like when I got to Sage as an example, my parents were like straight up going to sciences. That's what it is. But yo, I knew I wanted to do music my whole life. I knew I wanted to be involved in this shit my whole life, right? But I was
Mm.
the older sibling. You do take it harder. I don't care what anyone says. It is what it is.
Mm.
You do get more freedoms often, but you do take it way harder, and there is a lot more expectation to, like, bring the family name to the next level and all that shit. So I relate a lot to that. But like, I feel like that's crazy that you started so young. But like, when did you like pivot into having your own sense of musical identity? And let me just frame the question with, I guess, a
Mm.
comparison to how other people look at it. Because in your case, it's special. You're already connected to music. You're already kind of creating throughout your journey. So you also, when is this? What kind of technology exists when you were young? Like, what era were you
Oh
growing up
man,
in?
I come from analog, bro. Like I come from analog, but it switched over very quickly to like digital, but it was still within the box, meaning like I was still working on a workstation, like a rolling workstation. It's a keyboard and all the sounds are within it. Not that I hadn't used a computer before to make beats or whatever with that, but like I was copying and pasting fucking, samples of different stuff into Cool Edit at the time before it was
And
called Adobe Audition, you know what I mean?
when was this?
Oh man, this is like '01, '02, man.
Is this like when you're in like? So I'm
This
just
is
trying to.
18 this is 18 years ago, bro.
I hear you. I understand how
Yeah.
far back it is. We just trying to
Mm,
go through your story and understand it. Cause yo, it's
yeah.
you gotta like look at it. Some people might look at you today and go, "The guy's got a lot
Mm,
going on." I look at you today and go, "The guy's got this story full of a lot of different things he did, and in those things that he did, we can all learn something." So, as an
fact,
example, being so open-minded as a young age and having to like fight a trailblaze, these are things that created a character that allowed you to create distinction. So,
fact,
but another thing, like when I was talking to you
well
before, you're
said.
clearly technologically inclined in a way that's really refreshing to actually hear about, which we can get into some cool shit later on. But yo, how do we get there? Like, are you reading stuff when you're young? Like, what kind
Yeah,
of things
man.
were you? What kind of stuff were you into? And like, I guess, as far as musical identity, something that I've noticed is somewhere around puberty. People kind of go, and it could be a bit before, a bit after, whatever. But people stop going from this point of this is what's around me to yo, that's my favorite fucking song. Do you
I
remember
hear you.
like that first moment, the first favorite song of yours, the first element of that?
Wow. Um, a lot of music struck me in many ways at many phases of my life. But if you really want to say something prominent, something like a musical piece, and not necessarily that it's my favorite musical piece because of its musicality, but just because
Right.
of its significance of what it, or for lack of better words, or whatever vibration it gave in that phase of my life. It's when the Fugees dropped the score in 1995.
Okay.
That album, front to back, had feelings and vibes that at the same time was in the midst of a huge cultural shift, whether it's the West Coast side of music or the East Coast side of music, and all the way to even like European pop. Everything was just moving so much, and like that album just kind of like represented the sailboat that made its way through that without bumping it through anything. You know what I mean? Almost
I
like
do actually.
it's sonically, you know what I mean? It and it still resonates that way.
I definitely think it's one of those albums that you can listen to today and now, and it sounds amazing. It has the timeless qualities of a classic, and I really appreciate it to this day. Um, that's crazy. So like, I guess when did you like start to get like serious with it? So you're in high school, I guess. At some point, do you have access to technology? You're playing with Adobe programs and stuff. Also,
Well,
what high school did you go to?
I went to École Secondaire Pointe-Claire in the West Island. It's a French lease that was a thing at the time where the French school board would lease parts of English high schools and turn them into French side high schools. It was at John Rennie High School,
Mm,
like where mine was instated. Um, And then I finished my last year at Felix Leclerc, which is the French side of St. Thomas. All of that in the West Island, in the Point Claire section.
Right.
And in those days, the access was pretty much basic computers, but I wasn't using computers really to do the music at the time. I was more analog. Like at that time, I was using, Casio keyboards for them sounds, like just to jam out with guys literally at their garage and or in the basement. And that's when I picked up the bass guitar.
Okay.
I went to Archambault, picked up a Fender, uh, and really just kind of found myself with that because it represented more of just something to do in terms of musicality. It like helped me find myself as a person too. You know what I mean?
I respect that a lot.
Yeah, because it's a relationship with this thing where like, do you want to do it or not? You know what I mean? Because like I find a lot of people will have instruments in their house, and growing up, like aside the Casio, like I wouldn't see like a real guitar or a real drum set until I went to somebody's home or something else like that. And it's always tucked in the basement on the side or something. Or it looks like it's in storage or whatever. You know what I mean?
I
And
do
that
actually.
and that always perplexed me. I'm like, what? Like that centerpiece, man. Like,
No,
and
I resonates heavy what you're saying. My
mm,
first big purchase in life with my first job was a bass guitar. And before I got into hip hop, I actually
lo and
played bass
behold,
for a good
man.
year. Like I can remember sitting there and learning to play Jesus of Suburbia. It was the first song I learned to play. It's not a complex song, but it is 9 minutes. And I'm the kind of stubborn guy that would be like, fuck that, I'm gonna learn that shit. And it took me a week. But so I can really actually connect personally with what you're saying. And I think anybody
Mm,
that has gone through that journey with any one of their passions can do that. But what's really
mm,
interesting about what you said is that you saw people out there and they have these passion projects like they're props, and you couldn't actually fathom how people could treat that, so you went ahead and moved into your own thing, which I think is a fascinating thing to observe. Even I've definitely not heard that yet on this channel, which is cool because it is a thing I've seen in my life as well. So thanks for like even just sharing that, just to get all of our brains going.
right. I'm humble, man. Like a lot of people have expressed the way that they view me as like a like an intellectual and things like that, and it always humbled me. And coming from from a lot of people and all this, sometimes you know it like it can be perceived that, oh yeah, it could be taken for granted and all that, but because like everybody's a goof in their own way, you know what I mean? Everybody's a chimp in their own way, and so like, I'm always humbled to hear that. You know what I mean?
I mean, I just think it's really gracious that you're able to just share that so candidly, right? Like at the end of the day, it lets people who might be doing that know this is something people notice. And it lets other people know, yo, if that's your shit, put it front and center so other people can see that. And that's what we call a fucking knowledge nugget up in here. And there was a knowledge nugget thrown into the chat very recently. It's actually what our emote is, our cheapest one, because that's what it is. That's what this is about
So
on this channel.
so
So I
knowledge nugget, I
appreciate you
love that.
sharing all of this shit, man. To me, this can be the most non-linear, all over the place conversation. At the end of the day, people are gonna learn from it, and that's why it's a beautiful experience. Like, yo, even just thinking
Right.
about the fact that you're sitting there playing around with a Casio in a pre-analog era, and you're fucking like, yo, I'm sure there are people that don't fully even understand what that means. Like, I'm picturing it like you're with one of those keyboard thingies and you can record sounds, and it's one of those keyboard. That's what I'm picturing. I'm not
Yeah.
even 1,000% sure I'm right. But yeah, so that's really cool. So then you got into bass guitar. So you're basically in bands and shit at this point. Is that what's going on in your life?
I wouldn't even say bands, man. Like it didn't evolve past like just jamming and trying to improv, and
Right.
then it went to like me downloading like bass tabs off the internet, the early days of the internet, where like
Yes, I remember
we're
this.
talking about 98, 99 here, and these things were available to me, and I was just shocked that they're available, and like it was simplified tabs, because I can't read sheet music till now. Like it just I am wired to it, man.
No,
Like
I feel you.
like whoever manages to wire that in me, man, like is gonna get an award. Like because I can learn fucking anything, but some shit, man, just like
I feel you,
so yeah,
man.
those tabs really helped out. Those sheets.
Like the ones with
And
the like it would be like a 5, and that meant press down on the 5th fret.
you got it, man. You got it.
Yeah.
And it helped me just go through things quick because like it's almost set up like a video game code, for like video game combos for like a fighting game or anything. So I looked at it like that, and they're so easy to memorize like that. So it's like 5, 2, 3, 8, 4, 8, that,
Yo,
and I
you
would and I
J
would just along with the beat, and I would play with the Offspring CD. I put in the Offspring album, and I would just fucking play like along to like the band and shit like that, Green Day, things like
That's
this.
crazy. Honestly, Offspring has some of my favorite bass lines from, especially. I'm not gonna. I know it's not everyone's favorite, but I think Ixnay on the Ombre has some ill fucking bass lines that are like
That's
nobody
the
gives it
album.
the credit. But
That's the
like when you
album.
listen to something like I Choose and you hear that boom 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 boom, that shit's fire to me. I don't give a fuck what anyone says. So like that's fucking dope to me that you actually connected on that album too. But yeah, that's a crazy knowledge nugget you just dropped too, because mnemonic devices for memory are a powerful thing. And I don't think people realize how they work really
Mm,
well, but you just
mm,
employed one in your story, right? So you took
mm.
something that's kind of boring, like a bunch of numbers on a piece of paper, and you
Yeah,
went ahead and connected it to the idea of something fun that you're already familiar with, fighting game combinations, which, let's be real, when we all sit around and think about it, there are things we're super passionate about. So the idea is to take boring shit and relate it to the fun shit. And so I love that
mm.
you gave us that opportunity to even expand on that more. So that's fucking
Mnemonic
cool
saved
too,
my
dude.
life, bro. Mnemonic saved my life. Like I can't tell you, like every facet, every domain I've been in, like mnemonics has been it. How to remember anything.
Yo, it's super cool though that you were
Mm.
even like have that be part of it. Like I'm excited, man. This is, to me, this is exciting. Like we got 13 people
Likewise,
watching,
man.
so evidently
Likewise,
it's not
likewise.
boring to the people that
I
are sticking around.
don't worry, man. We're looking to add zeros to these numbers, like eventually. You know what I mean? Like,
Nah, I
and
feel
it
you,
can be
man.
very fucking doable. Very fucking doable.
But to me, the fact is, we still at a point where a lot of people are enjoying this so far, which is to me a pleasure to be able to sit here and have these kinds of conversations. Um, Anyway, I get a little high and redundant. It is what it is. So how long were you fucking around with the bass? Did you explore other instruments at this time? At some point, does high school end? And I don't know. I guess
Well,
that's what's going on.
well, through the avenue of the bass, I was able to obviously, hey, can I get that guitar for a second? Hey, let me sit behind that drum for a second,
Mm,
and realize that that's why I never evolved through my musicianship through that because I realized I don't technically want to be in a band, but it's not like I ever wanted to be in a band even when I picked up the bass. It's just I wanted to have fun strictly because I knew already pre-existing friends had this stuff. So I'm like, let's fucking do it. Like it was so available to me. It would have been me blocking it, not for it not to happen.
right.
And then I just went with it, man. And like, I rode that wave, like literally, like instead of letting that wave take me down, I kind of went with it. And I'd say maybe a year or two, and then that's when it kind of went silent for a bit, and then it went more like into more of an analysis of music for the next maybe
Oh boy. Okay. We gotta elaborate on
4 years
that,
now.
man.
Like for music, just I didn't do much other than like once in a while, like download early versions of Reason, download early versions of FL Studio, which like fucking at the time was like Chinese, and trying to understand the sequences and trying to understand these things because I come from a Photoshop mind, you know what I mean? I work with layers, and I was trying to
So,
understand how I can
so you were doing.
trans. You know,
So if I can just pause you then. So at the same time as you were doing the music, then you were also fucking around with stuff like Photoshop back in high
for
school.
absolute fun, bro. For absolute
Okay.
fun. I used to edit cars at the time. Like I used to get pictures of like regular cars and literally like try to like keep a hyper realistic finish to them, but modifying them. And I did that for fun, and then I even like landed on Lowrider magazine, like the website, like the featurette, where they put like all cool stuff, like that they land on their blog and shit. As a
That's
kid,
amazing.
yeah, I was like, wow, like this is like whoa.
So you're doing this as like a really young kid.
Yeah, man, I'm talking about like, bro, 1997, I was like what, 12, you
Dude,
know what I
that's
mean?
incredible. I think it's
13.
cool. And why it's cool, just on top of that, is because, yo, a lot of people, like, might have 12-year-old kids soon. Because I know a lot of people watching this as parents. And just seeing, like, what you become after encouraging some of this shit when they're young, you know,
Yeah,
like I
man,
think
you
that's
gotta
an
nurture
important
that
thing to
shit.
document also. Like my parents, I no disrespect to them, they were great, but they
Yeah,
were like, yo, put that shit to the side, math and science your life. And I'm like, yo, those were actually useful skills, but I ended up applying math and science to music, and that's just kind of pivoted back to that. So
they
that's
have
why.
no idea. I tried to show them like measures and like I have electricians in my family, you know what I mean? That like I almost like tried to get them to advocate. I'm like, yo, can you tell them like I understand what hertz and ohms and impedance and amps and this and like I get that and I use that every day with my
Right.
ears too and with my creative side. So like can you like excite them? Like but like doesn't try and like they don't see it and that's okay, like you said, like God bless them. Like
But it's
that's
also like,
that's their
yo,
scope, you know what I mean?
I forget. I'm getting the feeling on your timeline you're a little bit older than me, but still, when we grew up, it wasn't like it was today. Our parents didn't grow up with Google. Our parents didn't grow up with the internet. Our parents didn't grow up with any of that
I
shit.
didn't
And
grow up with
back in that
Google,
day,
bro.
you were taught
Yeah.
go to school, get a job, and you're set for life. You know, like, and that turned out to actually not be as true. Fun facts, it turned out to really not be that true. But I still don't blame them because I guess that they didn't have better information to act upon at that time when they were teaching us that stuff. So it's
Well,
like, you know,
there's
it's
that, there's that, there's that, but it's a two-sided thing. There's that, and there's also the fact that it was transitional too, man. Like it all happened like their perspective was applicable, and then it wasn't overnight for us.
right. It's big
Like it,
facts.
like it wasn't a gradual fucking change, man. Like between the late 70s, 80s to 90s to like that 10 to 15 year span, shit changed like the fucking last 200 years before that changed. You know what I mean?
Yes. Yo, I actually like I really love what you're saying. Like there's a lot of things I think people have this weird concept of like past history and stuff, but like even to expand it, the
Nah,
identity of like a middle class individual is about 100 to 150 years old. Invention of capitalism to sell product. Like everything about our life is a giant fucking experiment. So
yeah,
that's
man.
why it's like the
Feudal age is
really
right around the fucking corner, bro.
and
Like,
that shit was a long time. And yo, I would even argue that we're currently undergoing the third phase of industrialization right now. And
I hear
therefore, like, there's just a completely new future coming where, like, nobody's really, like, prepared for that. But we can get there a little bit later on because, I mean, at some point, your future is part of all of this, your story and shit. But yo, man, you're fucking smart. This is dope. But
respect.
yo, so you were basically fucking around with Photoshop. And I guess, were you also doing, like, video editing and stuff? Did you have access to the full Adobes?
At the time, I had access to stuff like that, but I didn't do no video editing per se until I really needed to. More when I started making beats and stuff like that later on. Like I didn't really
Okay.
get into video editing at first. It was really just Photoshop in terms of pictures.
Fair enough. So you were
Yeah.
saying though that because you have a Photoshop mind and you see the world in layers, you started having this different outlook, and I really hope you can expand on that a whole bunch because I think that's super fucking interesting.
Yeah, man. Like layers, whether opaque or like semi-translucent, things when they get stacked might give, nuances, changes, or even abstract what's before, or even protect or it's weird, man. But everything does work like that. People are, built in layers. Uh, so is our processes. So is our clothes. So it's like that it's a common denominator as many things are too. You know what I mean? And that you might see patterns of, but that's a big one. Layers,
Mm,
layers.
that's really fascinating. So what did you learn from like your music analysis over this time? How did that like happen? Because that to me is like really worth sharing. Because I don't think a lot of people think in a data driven way. So sharing that kind of shit kind of explains to them a bit how to do a music analysis.
I'll tell you, the trigger was around what we call the ringtone era. I come from the era. I come from the era where I held music to heart so hard, man. Like the whole craftsmanship of it and the way it's promoted, and shout outs to the legend Soldier Boy at the time. We misunderstood him for the first, you know,
Yep,
flat.
that's
You know what I
true.
mean? And like, I'm no hater. You know what I mean? So I investigated that sting. You know what I mean? That like, what is that? Why that? and feeling that way, realized, nah, this is, I saw his genius, and like immediately, obviously, because of my ear, he immediately won me over. Like I just saw his musicality, and I saw who this guy was. Oh, okay, he's fucking genius. You know
Right.
what I mean? He won me over within, a very short period of time of him coming out. And that's what led me to really like search within myself, like what else, do I like? What else I guess I went back and listened and started from the beginning and started listening, and at the same time it was the Napster days, you know what I mean? It was the
Yeah.
early Napster days. So we used to download, I went back and downloaded all the stuff from my childhood, the stuff that like it was almost like I used to get a dopamine rush because without like before this time we would have to have some type of tape that somebody would have to lend me to so I can copy it, or somebody would have to give me a copy tape, or somebody had to tape it off the TV, something. Now I got this on MP3 and it's on my computer, you know what I mean? And I went back and I analyzed all this stuff from the beginning from multiple genres, and then I started listening to really, really radical stuff that like I would land on dumps. Back in the days we had FTP dumps where like people had games, movies, porn, music, fucking dude from all over the world, and like I'd have access to these servers, and like I'd go on and just like
Hold up.
swoop, download everything.
So an
And then I'd
FTP
have
dump. Do you want to
yeah.
just? So when I talk to the New York guys, I try to
Mm,
tell them nobody from Montreal knows what you mean because they don't. When
mm,
they go, you know what I mean. So in
mm,
the way that when we talk to the other audience, I know what an FTP dump is.
mm.
But I know that because I work in a software company, which tells me that this is not something everybody fully understands. So for the people out there that don't know what an FTP dump is, I think you can expand on that because we can tie that into the music leak, music history era, and that's
Oh,
fucking
definitely.
fire.
Oh,
So if you want to
definitely.
just touch on that a little bit, it would be cool.
Um, Even before the Napster era, FTP dumps were given to were shared on a chat platform back in the day called MIRC, and it's an internet relay chat base. And I used to meet people and chat there from all over the world in these rooms, and these moderators of these rooms, after getting a liking to them, some of these guys were really, 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 really like advanced hackers. You know what I mean? And
Right.
people like were very, when I mean hackers, not like, oh, like what you think in fucking movies and criminals. No, when I mean hackers, like these guys were very cybernetically fucking advanced for somebody in 1990 fucking seven. You know what I mean?
Right.
And they had access to bootlegs and high quality, digital versions of movies. Which, what the fuck was even a digital version of anything in those days? We didn't get it. Like, give me like ship me a tape. You know what I mean? And I understood what a codec meant in those days because you needed to download so much fucking software to amend your Windows Media Player in order to play these digital copies of anything.
Right.
And like these guys are the ones who taught me this shit. So an FTP site is basically, I would say theirs, but don't think about it as like as a physical computer of theirs that they locate. It's a server that they've rooted somewhere in the world, and rooted meaning like gained administrative access, and they've basically used it as a computer that has a very strong connection at the time because we're all mostly on dial-up. These people had fucking university like connections and bank connections which run on super high speed connections at the time, uh, connected to servers in order to dump software, which was ripped software at the time. We called it wares. Uh, and they fucking shipped all that stuff and movies and, like I said, porn and games, and at the same time they used to dump music,
Mm.
shitloads of it from all over the fucking world. Like obviously the popular everyday pop culture top 40 shit, all the way down to like stuff that's been like digitally backed up off of somebody's vinyl collection. You know what I mean? From the grandpa's vinyl collection in Portugal. So like during that time, keeping my ear from stuff like this all the way to obviously what's on TV and what's going on and friends and that. The next few years really shaped me to be like, I know what is, or I think I can translate what is good music.
Okay.
And I started.
So I think what you just shared is super interesting because one of the other things I like to do with this channel is look at the then and the now. And part of this third phase of industrialization is having to adopt the internet and technology. But what's cool about your story is you're not the first guy I've talked to who was really internet savvy back in the day. And one could argue that this gave you a huge advantage throughout your career. Being able to Photoshop has got to have saved you a fuck ton of money over time. You
I
know,
have
being
no
able to
idea.
be so like in this era now where let's be real, being able to pick up an application and figure out how it works in a short period of time and use that tool to your advantage is a skill that being able to do quickly equals more money faster. You can see how like embracing the internet early on gave you this like edge in a sense, and being able to be present and see things, not necessarily like it's the only thing, but to be able to people who weren't online didn't get access to that, right?
Hmm.
That's just kind of what it
Hmm.
was. So you got knowledge on the internet at an early age and we're utilizing the
Fact.
internet as a source. So nowadays
Fact.
everyone knows the internet is a source of knowledge, but sometimes we're a little bit scared to go into new platforms and new ventures online. So what I'm saying is we can take from your like listen man, if you were to say FTP server to me back in those days, I would have fucking ran away and hid. You know, like that's how big and scary these terms really are. And I
They
think
really
in a
were.
lot of ways modern systems are just as big and scary. But the fact is there was a huge advantage to you being there. And that's what's really interesting. You just learned the shit as you went. You figured things out as you went along. You put two and two together. And that ended up being an instrumental part of you running a music analysis that fundamentally taught you what good music was. In a sense, people can do the same shit today. They now have access to all this music from a whole history of the world. They can run their own music analysis across genres, popular, whatever, and figure out the same kind of connections. But what I think is crazy is that you did it before it was cool or even like easy or possible. So that's really interesting to me.
Yeah, man. I mean, I'm from the days where there wasn't something called a portable hard drive. Like I used to unplug that shit right out the fucking tower, wrap it in anti-static, like, sheets, and put it in my fucking coat and take 6 buses to somewhere to transfer some software. You know what I mean? Um,
But even that's big. You know how many people have never done that and didn't even know that was a thing people had to do? And it's good because it teaches us all a little bit of humility for how easy things are today.
oh man, oh man. Like I saw the curve, and like I'm glad to have lived it, and glad to have literally like utilized it through every one of its steps. Yeah, man, it's gotten a whole lot easier now. A whole
Uh,
lot easier, streamlined.
All right, so after your music analysis, when was it that you decided to start going, and what was it that you started with, and how did all that work out?
It was around 04, 05. I started making beats by chopping a couple samples from old music that I liked and stuff. I guess stuff that you can recognize and can't recognize depending. I used a bit of both,
Okay.
and with some nice drum samples that I came upon, and they were already like, I didn't know nothing about mixing at the time, but like, thankfully they were kind of like pre-mixed, good sounds. So they kind of fit good together, and I would just line them up on Cool Edit at the time before Adobe bought that company and turned it to Adobe Audition. It was called an app called Cool Edit, where you can just, it's a timeline editor where you just line up your audio clips, and you can kind of affect the sound or clean it up to a certain degree. And within which shook me to my ground, within a very short period of time, I found myself, like, within months, like I think maybe 4 to 5 months, I found myself in New York in a beat battle.
Wait, what?
Yeah, because within that period of time where, like, I my learning curve, I had started sending out stuff, to certain people, and at the time was the MySpace days and things like that. It kind of landed at the time on some people called I Standard, and like they evolved into a whole other monster today. But at the time, they were very, like, such a small movement, and like at its roots, very pure. And I made the pre-selection to get onto a beat battle in New York at a bar, and one of the judges was Lenny S. which is from the Jay-Z camp,
Okay.
very close to him. And a lot of people came up, before me. Some people had, very good beats, average beats, and what I taught at the time, my perspective was. And then there was some people that had, very severe criticisms and some very good. And like, that's when I like, it kind of added a lot of hair on my chest. You know what I mean? Like I'm like, like I'm in fucking New York, and like it's different. It's not home. You know what I mean? And like but it felt good. It gave me a rush, and I'm like it can't be that bad. You know what I mean? Like, and but I was just like inside hoping that I wasn't gonna get a harsh criticism. And after I went on, like I saw not only the crowd was bumping, but like I saw the judges were bumping. That was the first time that like I ever saw somebody outside of anybody who gives a fuck about me. You know what I mean?
Right.
Actually,
I
bob to
do
my
know what
shit.
you mean.
That was the first outside validation, and I'm young at the
Yeah,
time,
that's
man.
fucking
I'm in
huge,
my
though.
early 20s. You know
So
what I
hold
mean?
on. Let's stop for a quick second here, because I do want
Mm.
to talk more about how MySpace worked in this part, because I don't want to gloss over that. That's interesting. But you're from Montreal for the sake of this conversation, and you already are doing a beat battle in New York, crushing shit at a young age. And people want to talk about how Montreal has not put in work to be places on the map. I just want to throw it out there. Now, that's part of why we're doing it. I'm not trying to throw shade at anyone, but I think one of the more interesting parts of this channel has seen all of these efforts Montreal has done to be out there. And it's really cool that you shared that, because that is
And
amazing.
and coming from a humble perspective, I wouldn't even put myself amongst like that top tier of when I say the guys who put in for the city, or like
Mm.
at the OG level and things like that. Like, yo, shout out to like there's a lot of people that I even inspired from my, I would say, my wave and my generation of people until now. Like damn, bro, like no, Montreal been putting a lot. Like I got my own qualms for whatever you want to call the scene, or this or that, whatever, but to say that, like, Chiefs haven't been doing shit, or there's nothing stuff, oh god, no, come on, man. Like we've been bubbling, like I'll give you
So
stories for
here,
fucking days about people,
So
you
I
know.
have to admit, like straight up, once upon a time I was part of the problem. Just on this subject, because I like the idea of giving flowers today. But like, I started in 2012, and I watched everything kind of fall apart. Because let's say 2012 to 2014 is when certain things happened that had a lot of things change in the scene. And so the live show situation kind of got fucked up a bit. And part of it
Yeah,
was drink prices went up. I don't think people actually know how much that fucked shit up. But when Belmont
yeah.
dropped those $20 pitchers, a lot of shit changed. Nobody wanted to go to
Mm.
Belmont no more. It is what it is. And that's not disrespect to them, but yo, I can tell you, you get rid of the $20 pitcher selling point, it becomes a lot fucking harder to tell a guy to come to this event. $20
Yeah,
rum and cokes was fucking huge. Anyway, um,
it's a big way to tell somebody to tag along, you know what I mean?
But so I came in then, but I was arrogant as shit, and I was
Mm.
25, so I already felt like I was old and I was super cocky, and so I'm the kind of fucker that used to go around and talk about how everything's a problem and everything is, and I'm gonna be the savior of Montreal type bullshit, whatever. That was a stupid attitude. I acknowledge that today, but I'm actually dumbfounded by how much I'm discovering Montreal's history really is, which is why
Mm.
I'm grateful a guy like you is even here talking to us, because, after this, it just kind of adds to the bigger picture of Montreal's history. So I don't know. Who in Montreal, let's say when you got into it, who in Montreal was interesting to you at the time? Who can we give flowers to at that point in your career?
And at the time, like the people that were really killing it was rest in peace, Bad News Brown. Like people, like these are people, because like it's not necessarily somebody whose music I would bump to the most, but like I knew at an early time in my craft that it's music business. It's two parts to it, and I started looking at the
Ooh.
people that were applying that second word. You know what I mean? And you know, there was people like that that was doing it. There was, fuck, I mean, really pushing it. Like he was the only one at the time that was doing it in the Anglo side. He was out there hooking up producers and like people that were really working hard and like doing awesome stuff too. It's people like Dirtwork, you know what I mean? Like I saw what they were doing. I was like, yo, that's fucking inspiring. Like,
Yeah, thanks for the bits,
you know what I mean?
Spades.
And stuff like that really pushed. and there was Millie Mills. These guys were fucking murdering shit. Magnum 357. Uh, these guys, these guys from my standpoint, like as a producer or as a musical person, these guys were not only artists that I saw were hot or fine tuning their craft as they went along with the time, but they were also themselves or have somebody with them in their team that is applying the business side of things, and that's what really piqued my interest over everything else. You know what I mean? Because the city is overly saturated with talent, and that's not a bad thing. But when it comes to who's applying on a consistent basis the business ethics to their craft, it's hard, man. It's a discipline, and I don't take it on nobody. We don't. It, it's
Nah, it's
it's a
cool, man.
full-on thing, yeah.
I hear what you're saying, but I only really asked that question because, again, I'm trying to document history, and we're going to rewind
Mm,
back to where you're at with your story after your competition. But I want to just shine light on the knowledge nugget you just shared, and it's the business side. And that, again, resonates heavy with me on this ego tip, right? It took me a long time to recognize that maybe some of my musical choices were not things people really wanted to listen to. Like, I wrote a song about corporate jargon, and while it might be an impressive feat to some people, I remember my dude looking at me and going, "Dude, this sounds like a fucking meeting. I don't want to hear this." And that really resonated with me, right? Like, I wrote a song that triggered him in that way. And so you start thinking a little bit differently about impact and stuff. So the business side is about fan acquisition, it's about stats, it's about accessibility, it's about, actually compromising a little bit. So I think it's interesting that you focused on that, because personally, I'm trying to figure out who takes the business side in this city currently. That's half the reason I'm doing these interviews. Like, who the fuck is taking their business seriously? Taking notes on everybody right now, and I'm gonna talk to everybody in the fucking city. That's what it is. Anybody that wants to come here. But yo, I love what you said there, because I think that sometimes people don't take their business very seriously, and they have a lot of talent, and that was me once upon a time. So it really resonates with me. I started taking my business seriously. I started really working hard and blah 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 and all the good shit. Life changed for me. It is what it is. So I love that you're sharing this, because to me it's big facts. And let's go back to after that contest. So what ends up happening there? The judges are bopping. I think I cut you off. My bad about that.
no worries, man. I can always tie back right back to it. Um, the judges, I see them bopping. Everybody's good. The the DJ spins the turntable back, and I'm ready for my feedback. And then they hit me with it. They tell me my drums are knocking. That already like relieved me right away. Like your first word is a positive word. Like we're already heading in the right fucking direction. You know what I mean? And then next dude, which happens to be Jeru the Damager, by the way.
No shit.
Yeah,
Oh boy.
said everything is hot and that I'm mad original, and then all I need right now is an engineer to mix my shit, like to make it sound less muddy and like make the melody and the sample cut through and all that. And then Lenny S hit me with this. He's like, if I were to give this to Jadakiss, I would need a hook on these things, and he left me at that.
Okay.
That's the day I became a producer.
Bro, that's an insane thing. That's an insane fucking thing. Holy shit. Oh my gosh.
Mm.
I mean, I bet there's nothing in the world the person can say to you since that moment that would ever, like, ever. There's nothing. We couldn't say a shit. You just got the validation most of us would pay for. That's nuts. And you earned it. You straight up earned it. How did MySpace play into that? Because I think you said MySpace, and that seemed really fucking interesting.
Well, through MySpace, I connected with like it's not a story that I was found or anything. It's like it's a I connected with like that those people I standard that were putting together these local beat battles in the states where they pre-selected some producers, and you paid a fee and you went up and at a bar like this in front of prominent judges, you know what I mean, and a crowd to play your beats. So I got pre-selected to go one of those, and I ended up going there. And then it just so happened that they that like at the time Yeah, I knew Jay-Z, this, that, but like I didn't know Lenny S, who that was. I didn't know too much, you know. Like I found out who Jeru the Damager is that same night because like other than hearing the name before, you know what I mean? I didn't know the history about the dude, you know what I mean? And things like that.
I
So that's how it came through.
I think it's incredible though, because what's really in a relatable sense is with social media today, it's not that different. Maybe it's harder, a lot harder to catch the attention of somebody.
Big
But
time.
I can tell you something. If you make a 3 hour album review about Dead Prez's Let's Get Free or whatever it's called, Stick will share it. You know how I know? That really did happen. Stick shared my shit. And I'm like, oh, cool. Fuck everybody else. Stick liked my review. I don't
Yeah,
care
man.
about anybody else. So, like, there are ways to attract celebrities on the internet. I can tell you, as Lemef says, it is harder to get people engaged. But you know what? I did a search on Twitch. How many interviews are there running at any given time? It's not a lot. That was just an opportunity to move here before,
Mm,
because one day it's gonna be fucking everything, right? It's gonna
mhm.
be like super saturated land and shit. But maybe my timing was for once fucking on point, okay? Because I'm never on point. I'm always behind on that shit, which is what it is a lot, you know. You know, on
You gotta get in early.
my dad told me about Bitcoin in 2010, and I
Oh,
just
don't get
laughed
me
it
going.
off.
Don't get me going.
um, but
Bit,
that's just kind of.
yeah, Bitcoin's another chapter, man.
But anyhow, that's actually a really interesting thing. But I love the fact that MySpace was something you utilized because you took advantage of the social media of the day, was more the bigger point. And with that, you created an opportunity for yourself. And in a sense, I like that because I'm trying to take advantage of the social media of today. And I got to talk to Iron Solomon on this very channel very recently, and that fucked me up because people have heard of him and I didn't even know who he was. So I discovered who Iron Solomon was, and then people got really excited. So I love a lot of your story because I can kind of relate to things in it, which is fucking cool. So that's really dope, man. I like that. Thank you again for sharing so far. I know I'm overexerting it, but we are Montreal. I'm
Oh, bless.
Canadian. It is what the fuck it is. I'd rather be over like in that direction than not.
Hell
So
yeah.
so what happened after that? You got your flowers from everybody on that stage.
Yeah.
It sounds like those are high praises you got, and then you came back home.
Came back home, hungry as ever, and then grinded. I'm early 20s. Working a job, finding out what I'm doing. At the time, I had a computer background and in cybersecurity, and then I kind of left that and kind of like tried to pursue, going up into the 9 to 5 echelon in retail, starting with like selling cell phones to fucking clothes to whatever, and eventually throughout that path, uh, working up all the way to like administrative positions and things like that when it comes to you know that whole scene. But during that time, I'd say between '05 to late '07, that 2.5, just under 3 years, that's what I pretty much did. And I just worked on my craft, man. Like I I didn't even other than like throwing beats with like certain people I started working with. Yeah, there was certain artists that gravitated towards me, local people, um, home slices like Pete Cheddar. People really put me on from the video. Yeah, that does beats and all this guy does beats, this, that, and the other, and it really grew. But it's when in '08 when the former G Unit manager CEO made this conference called it like he made it called it a one stop shop producer conference where he rented out like a hotel like hall, and he invited like the elite of like fucking producers and artists and shit, and then people like me, like young producers, would fly out there, and then it's like a whole fucking 2 day seminar and all that, and then it's through iStandard that I found that out too because they were hosting a beat battle there too. And they were hosting it in Arizona, Phoenix, Arizona, and then I flew out there.
But that's super interesting too because it shows the power of networking online. which is
Yeah,
something that
man.
again is super replicatable
Yeah,
today. And in a lot of ways,
yeah.
a lot of the people, because there's people in the chat right now going off, and in a lot of these ways, these are all people in a sense trying to create this online network. And it's why I think Twitch is super fascinating. I'm watching how the DJs utilize it, and the DJs have collectives behind the scenes. You know how I know this? Because they got schedules and shit where all the DJs are on at certain times of days, and they're really fucking organized. And they are absolutely rating each other's channels. Rating on Twitch is when you like jump on the next guy's channel and bring all your viewers over onto their shit, and then you can auto host. And so, in a lot of ways, what you're describing is like a precursor to what's actually going down on Twitch. Like when you look in gaming land, it gets even more big with how much they fucking organize to this extent. So I think it's crazy how you experienced in this MySpace era a lot of what the modern kind of world is turning into. You are like a guy people really should be fucking listening to when you have opinions on stuff, is my little opinion over here so far.
Respect,
That's fucking nuts,
respect.
dude. Um, so off the jump, you're learning a whole bunch of shit. Okay, Lemeth out there is making fun of me because he made a comment about how I didn't have about raids, and I'm talking about it now because I had a bunch of traffic on like 2 streams and I could have raided, and that makes me look fucking good. And both times I just fucking clicked off, and he's like, "Dude, raid!" Lemeth, shout that guy out. He showed me a lot about the potential of Twitch. He has a channel where he's playing Minecraft and shit, and he fucking spits freestyles. And that's just dope. Like, yo, he just spits freestyles. I've seen him go for like 20 minutes sometimes. He will open up the beat making
That's nuts.
program, start fucking flexing on it. So in my head, I'm going, a guy like you just do your fucking job on Twitch within reason, at least on the beat making side, just live on Twitch, and you're fucking just moving up in a whole fucking world, you know, like it's a whole other universe over here. So I think it's really cool because in a way you're kind of helping my business case for why artists should come into Twitch in the first place, because of the networking potential of organizing under bigger
Big
banners and shit
time,
down the
man.
line.
Big time. Big time.
Yeah, also apparently euros. You can get tips in euros from the European gaming market, which is fucking cool. Anyhow, that's dope. Actually, I bought some shit in euros today. It was more expensive than, dollars. It is what it is. So yeah, when do you start to like go more serious with it? So you're cruising around, you're learning and working on your craft, which is fucking crazy too, because there's the humility in recognizing you have to improve. You're putting the time in improving, and this is a lot with production in terms of beat making and mixing and
Yeah,
all of that stuff.
yeah.
And then what happens next? When does it go to like a new era? What is the new era?
The new era is the 2010 era, is when you enter the new decade. That's when I clicked with uh, my boy Pete Cheddar and a bunch of other guys from the city, and we went under the banner of Hustle Cartel at the time. That's
Okay.
when that's when I really met the Montreal rap slash music scene on a lot of its aspects. You know what I mean? That's when I met all the previously mentioned names and got to know who they are and things like that. At least from an artistic standpoint. Um,
That's a pretty fucking good era to start. I don't think people realize that like 2008 to 2012 could be qualified as a golden era for
oh,
Montreal music.
definitely. Oh,
As
huge.
in, we was popping. Like, let me tell you, when I did my first show, it was June 2nd, 2012. Just to give you some insight into the era. I'm gonna be real. There's nobody on that thing that's named. Like, we're talking early, like make way and shit. Like, Buds is at this show. I have a video of it, so that's how I know Buds is right there in the front, being he's hyping it up. Big ups Buds for that. And it's like all small names, but we had like this girl doing live painting and shit. And I swear there was like 80 people, 90 people at this little event for my first ever show. You look at a show in 2020 and that seems like an implausible number, but like that was a shitty show. The good shows were actually pulling numbers. Like you could actually see fire fucking numbers going up. uh Anyhow, yeah, I forgot what I was saying. I saw a comment that distracted me. But basically, yeah, so that was just the golden era. And I want you to know that when he's coming into it, we're talking about like some real shit is happening in the scene. So when he's saying these names, these are like, I would call them Montreal legends. Everybody that I don't actually know the
100%.
guy that in your Hustle
100%.
Cartel. Those guys I'm not actually as familiar with, but all the other names that you mentioned, I would argue are absolutely Montreal legends. I bet big respect
Definitely.
on giving them that. So yeah. Anyway, back to you and what it's like being in that era coming into it.
Um, I would say it's a mix of intimidating, but at the same time, when you know your craft and you know what you're doing, and thankfully at the same time I had somewhat of some confidence building during those days, and you just go forth with it, you know. And I felt like it was being part of a league almost. It
Mm.
almost felt like I'm past tryouts, like I had past tryouts in terms of being in that local sport, and I was kind of in a like allowed on the rink now. You know what I mean? I'm allowed to skate on that rink now. I kind of earned that. That's how it felt. How I would say it felt at that time. And just like any other novice, you know what I mean? At the time, I played good. I skated hard, and I tried to show that like I have a good head on my shoulders, and you take tumbles, you know what I mean, and then you scrape knees, but like at the same time you get a lot of nods and cheers because of you know what you do. So that it was almost like a fucking one of those Disney sports movies, you know what I mean? Those type of areas like fucking Mighty Duck days, right?
So like, were you like in a studio at the time? Were you just making beats? Like,
I was
how?
making beats at home. I was making beats at home, man. And believe it or not, I started on Logitech 2.1s, meaning like the two small speakers with the small subwoofer, the gaming systems. Because I didn't totally understand monitors, especially my first year. And at the time,
Just to
like
be clear, we mean
there
like
was
the
no
speaker
YouTube.
monitors, right?
Correct. And at the time, like I was so hungry for that knowledge, and there was no YouTube or anything like that at the time. It was very early. It was like '05, and like YouTube was very early. And I don't like I couldn't find this type of stuff. And as much as I could find, I'm like, okay, monitor, speaker, that. I didn't know where to put the investment. So at the time, I just ran with what I had for the moment
Mm.
until I can gain. And very shortly after, like I landed on the KRKs, this, that, all that stuff. But early on, like I just had the Logitechs. So I used those, and then whatever I outputted, I'd put it on CD. Like I would stem out everything and put it on CD at the time, and bring it to studios at the time. Red Rhino, shout out to Drex,
Okay.
and he'd have this stuff mixed at the studio downtown.
You know what I like about what you said there? It's another knowledge nugget. And I think something that people can learn from that is how to deal with obstacles. Sometimes, and I've been guilty of this myself, we get caught by, I think it's called the toolbox paradigm or some bullshit. Basically, the idea is we think we need certain tools to start our project. And in some cases, we do need certain tools to start our project, right? Like
The
it's hard to
minimal,
make.
yeah, the minimal stuff, the elemental stuff.
But I feel like in a lot of ways we make it way more complex. So what
We
you
do.
did is you didn't have access to maybe the better speakers at that point in your life. So it sounds like you said, fuck it, I'm going to use these speakers. But you also weren't willing to compromise your sound quality. So you figured, whatever, how can I work around this? And your solution is do as much work as you can and then go where you can get it all finished and get it banged out. And I
Correct.
think that's actually really incredible to share with people because that translates a lot into a lot of our current struggles. Like, yo, check it. I wanted to make a lyric video real quick for a contest thing, right? I could have fucking spent real money, or I download some shit with a watermark. So I did that, and it was free and it was easy. It took a half hour, and then I put my shit out, and I was happy with it. You know, like you just use what's in front of your face sometimes and use the opportunities that are there. Now, I'm not saying that you can skirt all costs, but I love the fact that what you did was maneuver a solution that gave you the perfect outcome within a realistic and sustainable way. Because I believe that methodology is pretty sustainable over time, right? You mitigate your
Yeah,
costs and you make it
yeah,
as good as you can get it.
yeah. I only took out what like stuff that was gonna be trying to like we're trying to get to a release quality. You know what I mean? Everything else was good enough for me to bump in the car. You know what I mean? But like anything else, I wanted to take to release. So yeah, that's what we did the studio. So yeah, it was definitely cost effective.
That's amazing. Um, so I guess at this time you're making beats. Are you going to the shows? You're hanging out with people, or are you kind of like avoiding
Yeah,
the scene?
man, all of it, everything, going to the shows, trying to network with everybody. At the time, just going even harder on my craft, and then at the same time maintaining my 9 to 5s and this and that, and um, things things piled up, and then there's a certain frustration that an artist gets, especially I think it's because of my painter background, or my drawing background. Um, we like projects, we like releases, we like launches. I don't know, something about that. Because I met some peers that were just fine to just create, and stack hard drives. Um, I was fine doing that as long as I was perfecting my craft, but like in between all that and somewhere, like I want to present, I want to launch, I want to
Right.
publish, I want to show, I want to put something in the works, and that's what really tickled my first senses of like I want to start doing this thing as a business too. You know what I mean?
When was this?
This is like 2011, 2012.
Okay, so you've been in the scene for a little bit. You're with people who are into creating,
Correct,
but you're into execution, and that
correct.
probably relates to because you. What was your day job at that time?
At that time, I was working with the bank. At the time, I was working as an advisor with the bank, customer service. Uh, Before that, I was literally back in retail again. Like I told you, I was working in electronics in retail. Then I left for a little bit after the whole ordeal with these guys, because a lot of these stores were closing down on me. I worked at like a Bell Mobility, and then they would close down. I'm like, "Oh, okay, what the fuck is going on?" When you walk in, they're like,
Right.
"Okay, guys, we're shutting down." I'm like, "What is going on?" I took a little time off of that, and then I worked my way up to a nice position, administering like a condo for like 5 years, which got me a nice position at the Sears at Fairview before it shut down.
Yeah, that's dope. I like that.
And that was the highest level of I was one of the three directors that ran the store there. I was director of customer service at the point. Recruiting staff, this, that, training, all that stuff, and overseeing the whole three floors at the Fairview Mall in West Island. Um, that was like almost 4 years ago now. Well, that
Yeah,
I
that's
left.
crazy though. No, but just in general, why I think it's really cool to share that is like I'm still employed at my day job, right?
Mm,
Like I've been at the same company for
mm,
10 years,
mm.
moved up from a call center into middle management and shit. But I don't think I'd be sitting here talking to you if I didn't have that job, right? Like I haven't achieved that level of security in my life, and
I hear you.
something I realized is there's like this glorification of being a starving artist out there that I'm not personally into. I'm a very fed artist. It lets me think clearer, and I feel like it's just better for my life to eat and try to be
Oh
healthy
yeah,
and shit, you know?
hell yeah,
So, I kept my job the whole time, I guess. That's what I'm saying.
hell
But
yeah.
part of your journey and I'm assuming part of your ability to live this life, it was the fact that you were employed and that you did hold that down. But also, it's cool that you rose up, right? Like, you didn't just stay static in it. Like, there was an ambition in the day job. So, like,
Oh yeah, on both sides of the thing, and even within that, I never took it really much as like a career. I just looked at it as like I'm gonna still achieve that whatever I do in that lane, and I still have like sideline projects that where I'm trying to greenlight with with that income itself, which also is hard, especially like which is like another like common subject that everybody knows that most people are fucking underpaid for whatever they're doing. You know what I mean? And it's hard to really have some overage from your take home. You know what I mean?
yeah, no, but it's cool that you have that just because I can
Mm,
see a lot of like, look, project management is a really important tool, in my opinion, to accomplish music. So, like, I mean, an album is simply a project, and if you manage it effectively, you put it out, right? Like, at the end of the day.
right.
And I think, like, you just dropped a couple of things that made it sound like, project management's your shit too, because part of project management
Oh, big
is the
time.
completion of the goals you set out to do,
Right.
and it's not just sitting in limbo forever. But I also remember the eras of my life where I met a lot of people that wanted to sit in limbo. So I feel what you're saying there. But let's go back to 2011 or 12 or at that point. How does it progress for you as you're building up this universe? How does that build up for you?
Man, during those days, like I dabbled. Those were the odd job days. Between 2011, I had those the condo job, and on the side, I would dabble with like helping videographers on set with whatever it was, just because of my background in selling electronics. It also comprised of selling actual cameras and lenses.
Okay.
So because I was a bit versed in that, it kind of helped me navigate myself on set with certain guys that were starting out, and they felt that like it was good to have that for themselves as an edge, just somebody who knows the terms and the lingos, especially when they're going to rent equipment. You know what I mean? They know somebody who understands what the fuck is going on more than they do, and so that's what I did in the beginning, and then eventually at the same time building my craft, and then that's when I really started working in depth with Pete Cheddar, and that's when we really started like really sharpening each other in terms of like making a record and not just throwing raps over a beat. Sharpen
Okay.
him as a Sharpen him as a writer and sharpen me as a producer as opposed to a rapper and a beat maker.
I like that. I like the way you made that distinction. So it's more about. Can we clarify it a little more, just for the people out there?
Um, Rapper, beat maker, rapper. The basic term of it is you put in a witty format a bunch of rhymes in a sequence over a nice beat, which is pretty much the same thing but in a sonic manner. Well, so they're both sonic, but for lack of better words. Whereas a writer and a producer have more in mind of a, a predetermined vague vision, or it could be precise enough, but like a certain guideline of what they see, want to hear on the beat, and then they apply that guideline as they craft said beat or said song. That's the main difference of it. There's an actual guy instead of just, hey, I got some bars and here's a beat. Back, yeah. But there's many levels to that. That's a very very like I said, multi-layered comes like theme or topic, because a lot of people say, yeah, but if you send the beat to somebody that you just did, and then they rapped on it, you produced it, right? Yes, I did, but like, what doesn't you said that's a beat maker? See, that might create a nice little controversy with it.
No, hold on just one quick second. Shout out Golden Jenny for following. It's the rules on Twitch. If somebody
Oh,
follows, you have to
bless.
shout them out.
Oh, bless.
Um, but I want to just touch on that. I don't think you're wrong. I actually really agree with you.
Mm,
Because I'm a songwriter more than I'm a rapper, and that's
right.
how I would define myself first as a writer. I do love hip hop, and I try to make myself a better MC over time. But my artistic choices are not to be the best rapper. It is to create the best song based on my
Mm,
skill set and ability at the time.
yeah, man.
So like to me, there is this huge distinction, and I think that even if it might create controversy in the mind of some people, at the end of the day, I see you as a specialist who has studied the industry. I mean, all you have to do is look at the Grammys to see that there's Record of the Year and Songwriter of the Year, and those are two different things, and one of them includes the writer, and one of them does not. So evidently, there's two separate things right there on one end
Mm,
of it. So these kinds of distinctions are not necessarily wrong. They're just a matter of just words and what they mean. So even if people might disagree with you, that's not really like to me a huge concern, because I think what you're saying is important to define. It's not saying one is better than the other. There is a huge fucking market for rap. Just guys rapping over a beat with no sense of song structure or carry. A huge market for that. Are they songs? Probably. Yeah, I would not say they're not songs, but you could say that the emphasis on what you're trying to create as a final product are completely different in terms of what I'm perceiving from your songwriter producer thing versus beat maker and rapper. So is one better than the other? That's not up for. That's not even what we're talking about. We're just defining what these things mean. So that's
yeah,
why you can feel free to say what you want, because that's all we're doing.
yeah, definitely, definitely.
Yeah. So, I mean, I definitely think it's a good distinction to make. And I think that a little bit it has to do with marketable products too. right? Not necessarily even marketable products, but creating a product and the kind of product that you want to create. So I would argue the main difference would be structure and intent, right? Like that's what it's going to boil down to. You're going to have, I don't know, what would you say is the more defined version of the structure? What would you say that transition look like for you in a literal sense?
The structure of like the records itself, or like the
Yeah, like let's say you went from this way of making songs and things and you evolved into a new thing. Define that process a little bit to us because again, this is your story.
it's almost like it takes you back a bit in the beginning because you realize that the aside it being an artistic thing, it's almost like an engineered thing. There's an approach to it. Um, I didn't quite have that more than like taking apart like little toy cars or whatever, but understanding the engineering part because a mix literally makes or breaks a producer. You know what I mean? A lot of what you want to translate through your sound is also in the mix. A lot of how you texture your sound is the mix. So it's like so a lot of people say, yeah, I'm not the best at mixing, but I can still make these. Yes, but like a certain amount of mixing will help you also produce. So that was my uphill during that phase, which is also the phase where I upgraded my speakers, which is where I got my monitors, which is where I tuned my ears. This is where I built my ears.
Okay,
The
talk
next,
about that. What does tune your ears mean?
ah, man, at the early phase of tuning my ears, I what I understood it as is make a lot of different things, feel a lot of different sounds, and see how they translate out of speakers, and see how they work together. See how like playing three different basses, what happens. And just building like a predetermined set of what my ear knows. That way, I can program what I want before I can conceive it. Meaning, understanding how your paint works and understanding how your brush works, so you don't need to start painting before you envision something.
Mm. I was gonna say it sounds a lot like cooking. So
Yeah, man.
I went through this process with cooking where I don't necessarily know how to cook well, but I know what a lot of different spices taste like with a lot of different spices. And I did that because you just kind of run it like scientific. This time I'm
That's
going
what I'm
to add
talking about.
rosemary. This time I'm going to go no rosemary. This time I'll subtract garlic. This time and it to me the way it sounds like you trained your ear was to use the tools at your disposal inside of the various programs that you had at your disposal and literally just figure out what everything did. And that's super interesting to me. And I think
Hmm.
why it's extra interesting is cuz why I like my sound guy is because of his mix. Some people might not like the mix he produces. That's fine. I like the mix he produces, which makes me super fucking happy with it, right? And I like it because he mixes more for like a rock ear than like a hip hop ear. So the music is more squished into the vocals. And I'm a huge punk rock guy, and I fucking love the sound. So it's like whatever. I also accept that if I want to be in hip hop, maybe I should not necessarily continue to use that focal point, because on the other hand, everyone else doesn't agree with me on this one. I found out after. So we fucking around and doing different kinds of stuff now. But end of the day, it's that like quality of mixing, just that kind of a decision, like how far into the mix your vocals that creates like all this style and all this extra shit. So I think it's fucking like I'm not that into that side of things because I'm not very patient. I rather work on my voice personally. But I love the fact that like at the end of the day to become good at it, there's no way around it. You can go watch a YouTube tutorial that'll give you a 5 minute pre-mix solution, but then you're gonna kind of sound like everybody else using that same YouTube 5 minute thing.
Right.
But my engineer went to school, learned a bunch of science shit. So for him, it's like an art form to
Mm.
engineer correctly. And in the same way, I get the feeling you took it with that same kind of approach and used it like it's cooking, like it's art, and you just fucking got into the science of it in a way that many of us
100%.
approach other elements of it. And I think that's fucking beautiful because to me, you're right, yo. Listen, I don't sound good when I give my raw vocals. I played, look, I made this song Lose Weight. Some people felt it, but when I played an unmixed version of my vocals in front of the next dude, he's just like, it sounds like ass. And he was right. It did sound like ass. My engineer made it sound brilliant. And I don't think people give enough fucking credit and fucking flowers and love to engineers in hip
Oh,
hop.
nowhere
Like,
near, man. Nowhere near.
and I'm not like again saying that because of who you are. Like I'm literally at the point, like I said at the very beginning, for those that are just joining us, I want my engineer to be like the Ryan Lewis to my Macklemore, because like
Yeah, man.
honestly, it's so.
Shout out to the engineers, man.
Cause yo, like I call him my wizard because that's kind of like what fucking happens. Is yo, shut up, Merker, for watching. Merker apparently doesn't stick around, so the fact that Merker's still with us is big news bears, man. That's cool. That's all you. You being fucking interested in shit. But like, no, shout out to engineers for real, because to me, like, listen, you guys are artists. As that's why it was such a pleasure to get you here so early on in this behind that suit shit, to let the engineers and the producers and shit know that y'all are like fucking important to me and to Montreal and to everything else out there. Because like, listen, as much as the rappers might want to define their sound, like I was saying a bit before off camera, I'm pretty sure it's guys like you and guys like Merker and guys that actually make beats and shit that are ultimately going to be the people that define the sound of the city, so to speak, more than anyone else. Because really, we all come to you for our beats. We all come to you for the services. You touch so many people, young and old, that it's fucking crazy. You have influence. I maybe I get influence one day, but I've seen a range of names that you are touching that are fucking people I have on my watch list. An example being the Talia Montreal girl. That chick is destined for some shit. And what Don Dada's right there working with her. And I'm like, oh my fucking God, Don Dada's pulse is right fucking there.
Shout out to Sauce, man. Like my main boy who puts all that together, man. He's a dot connector. He's the guy who brings this one, that one, this one, that one, me, you know what I mean? We're just a bunch of nodes, and it's crazy. Like that's his talent, you know what I mean? His art.
Ooh.
He like my main man and also manager. Like he also like it's like a dot connector for a lot of people in their lives. You know what I mean? And more than that to a lot of other people too. But it's crazy like how his picture how it's painted is that they see. He sees like the whole broad connection of like people working together, like this guy with this artist with this. Like I'm sure they can generate something, and he's like he's got the gambling personality where like he's like I bet it would fucking generate something fucking dope. You know what I mean?
That's hilarious.
And bro, like and check it out, man. Like we fucking and it works. You know what I mean? That formula fucking works, dude.
So basically, you have a guy that hooks you up with the right people to get your
Yeah,
shit magic.
Man. Yeah, man.
That's super fascinating.
Everything.
That's
from engineers to artists to writers to this to that to this to that. You know what I
so
mean?
there's like a huge need in the city then for like dot connectors is
Oh
something.
man.
Because if we're like trying to say what would solve the Montreal problem, I don't think a lot of people think it's a lack of talent. I mean, listen, man, I can tell you that you can pick a genre of music and an age group and a gender and a community, and there's like 15 people ready to go out of town in the fucking world in Montreal at least. And that's just Montreal, right?
I'm telling you, man. I'm telling you, like we're just a bunch of floating, like like planets or rocks or whatever, man. And like these guys are like the pole that keeps that shit together. You know what I
So,
mean?
yo, that's why we gotta basically. So I guess if people want to actually solve the problem, that's the job. I'm trying to make this channel here a hub for people to get that history, to see how to get things done and shit. So I'm not even trying to say I'm anything fucking like huge or special, but like to me, it's kind of in line with what you're saying. The city needs like dot connectors, people to like put the strings of greatness together. Like how many people don't even know that you exist, and they should know you exist? That's insanity. But the truth is, unfortunately, if you Google our city, it's not in the best shape. We're all working on that. We gonna fucking fix this shit. We'll figure it out. But that's why it's great that you're here. Because, yo, man, I feel like already you taught us a whole bunch of interesting shit on how you approached it. But, yo, also that dot connector thing, huge time knowledge fucking nugget, yo. Because, yo, I never really thought about it from that point of view, right? Shout out Spades for the bits. Bits is when they give little penny donations. It's fucking cool. Twitch is dope like that. So shout out Spades. That's when you say something significant or whatever. We also just shouted him out, so big love to Spades. But yo, for real, that's what he's trying to do right now. It's basically kind of like go out there and get all the beat makers, get all the peoples, get everybody connected. We trying to figure, like there's this contest grind that's evolving now in Facebook groups where like people's trying to like bond together and like do some shit. So like I partner with Peter West for my January contest. He's gonna supply the beat. Bunch of rappers come through, put up a hundo, and Best 16 takes it, but it's really about getting people fucking together in these positive fucking kind of ways. So like I love what you're saying because it's like you have a guy like that in your scene and he's really making the magic
100%,
happen. So that's
100%.
cool, man. I'm really glad we're having this chat. I feel like I'm gonna leave this in a vibe person with better ideas. Um, that's crazy though. I gotta ask a question though. Are those paintings behind you? You
Yeah,
did you?
man.
When did you get into like that kind of for real, real? Because that's some fire shit that you have there. You got complimented earlier, but it just you wanted you to know that.
Respect, respect, respect. Shout out to whoever sent that compliment. I'm not sure who did. Um, it's some like I've been painting my whole life on and off and drawing, but like about a year and a half ago, I really found my style, which derives from like other people, dominantly like Keith Haring, Roy Lichtenstein, a lot of pop art. You know what I mean? And I kind of find I got like they say, I found my pen. And once I found my pen, I put it out there and like I put it out under the name Pop Arcade, which is like a mirror reflection, almost like a deflection of the word Don Dada. You know what I mean? Pop arcade, but at the same time, it's also a play on the word pop art.
Oh, can what? How did Don Dada come to be? I should have asked that. I never did.
That's a big time story, man.
All right, so we'll finish
Um,
this one and then we'll ask the Don Dada story.
yeah. No, so yeah, you guys can check it out, man, on Instagram, Pop Arcade. Like, I didn't want to really personify myself as an artist when I released that stuff. I didn't want to keep it a mystery either. But yeah, it's like I do mashups of different pop culture icons and themes and things like that, and I put them together to create a hybrid of the both. So if
Yo,
you
those
go
are
on
fucking
Instagram,
cool, dude. I just
uh,
linked it in the chat. I have them open in front of me right now. I'm
respect,
seeing like
respect.
Buzz Lightyear and Aliens. It looks like Family Guy and one of the Street Fighter dudes. Is that Biggie and the fucking
Kingpin,
Kingpin? Yo, that
correct.
dude, this is nice. This is the benefit of
Respect.
online life. It's so easy to do this. So anybody right now can click on that link I just shared, and they can actually see what the fuck we're talking about. And
Yeah,
if you're
see
not,
that, man. Much
it's Pop
respect, much
Arcade,
appreciated, my man.
dude. Holy shit, you're good. And I like the fact that there's a style to it, like a consistent style to what you're
Yeah,
doing with it. I love that. That's great.
I love signature, man, on everything. I'm a sucker for anything that has signature. You know, that's even with cars. You know what I mean? Like some people like certain car models. I follow this. I follow certain designers, and like sometimes when they switch companies, you know, just to like admire the works they do. It's crazy
Yo,
because
that's
it's like
crazy.
just because of signature. Signature is everything, man.
Yo, are you into fashion?
Like you've never seen, and I've never dabbled in terms of it, but when I say like you've never seen, I love the emotions evoked by dress and garments.
Ooh, I like that.
It can both received and given.
Can you elaborate on that? What you mean by that?
Sometimes you see somebody look good and it strikes you a
Mm,
certain way. Sometimes somebody sees you dress good and it strikes you a certain way. Sometimes somebody sees you look good and strikes you in a certain way. Sometimes you see somebody else and you dress in a certain way, makes you feel a certain way.
right, right.
Fashion, man, is so like and it translates a lot too. You know what I mean? It translates a lot.
So
How you
that's some.
feeling, even if it's the opposite of what you're feeling, sometimes that is your cover. You know what I mean? That's
So I feel like I can empathize heavy with what you're saying. One of the things I didn't know would happen to me over the course of these interviews was learning about how important fashion really, really, really was. So
big time.
like, it's never been a huge thing to me. I lost a lot of weight this year, so none of my shit fits, and I'm like,
Hmm.
fuck it, it's non-essentials. I can't even fucking try shit on. Fuck that shit. But
Hmm.
then I started talking to a lot of people, and I realized that like it is so important to everyone else, right? I'm looking at some of my old pictures performing, and I was performing in a suit, right?
Right.
And I don't even fit in these suits. I look fucking goofy and awkward. Like basically, the only reason I got accepted is cause I could rap, not
Mm.
cause I presented myself correctly. It was more like the opposite. Like I fucking saved myself because I was
Right.
able to pull it off at the end of the day. And now it's like I'm looking at the situation and I care a lot more about the fashion and the elements and how I present myself. And it really is so powerful because people do perceive you a lot on what you look like. and whether or not you like it, it's not necessarily judgment, but they're gonna interpret things. So like you can look stylistically however you want, but there's like
Right.
a clean and presentable way to present yourself where things kind of fit right. And then there's a way where you look like disheveled and you don't give a shit, which is not necessarily the wisest choice. So I think it's really cool that you just brought it up like that, because I mean, I'm not trying to say that there's anything like good or bad about how to present yourself. It's
Right.
just that if you present yourself like people you care about yourself, people
Mm-hmm.
respond well to that shit.
100%. That's a fact. That's a big fact. Whether whether it's a clean look or a haggard look, if it's a look of vindication, you know what I mean? A
Mm,
look of a look of it's your stance, it's who you are, it's authentic. You know what I mean? That's it. It'll translate. But yeah, it's not about like I said, it's not about if it's haggard or clean. But yeah, definitely fashion does come as a big play, especially on a first introduction or as an artist, especially like your image is not only your shell, but like it's your sheen, meaning,
mm.
you know how like they say shine, you know, like you gotta always be brilliant and this like that. That is part of that brilliance. Your shell, your cloth, your cloaking, your what you have on. You know what I mean?
That's true, man. I mean, I appreciate that a lot. I actually like bought lights just to change the color in my room for the sake of aesthetics if I'm going to be doing
It's
this a lot.
everything. It's
And it
everything.
was crazy. Like my room looks like shit with normal light, but it looks so much less like shit because of the red lights right now. It's fucking nuts how like little changes can even have such a big impact.
Big time.
Um, That's crazy though, but your pop art stuff is cool. Your ability to do this is really crazy. Just out of curiosity, do you sell shit? Is that like a thing that you do just so we can plug you properly?
Definitely. Like I started selling some originals. I offer some prints, like it says on the IG page and all that. So it's really on a small basis. People just put in orders, and then like depending on the turnaround that I get, like I give them the estimate if they're down with it, and they pretty much pay for it, and then I complete it by the time that I got the estimate to do. That's for now. You know what I mean? Before this whole COVID shit, I was planning to do a gallery launch, you know, or
Yo,
some
that's
type of thing like
fire.
that.
Okay, I have to ask a serious
Yeah,
question. Do you mind if we pause for like 2 minutes, 3 minutes
not
so
at
I can
all,
go
man.
pee? And
Go right ahead, man.
I'm gonna throw up a be right back and play your song for a couple of seconds, one of your tunes, and then
Bang out.
I'll be right back. So everybody, please bear with me. It is what it is. Two wonderful fucking people, and look at that. Don Dada is back at the same time. I don't care what anyone says. As you get a little bit older, these bathroom breaks just make a better vibe. It is what it is. I don't care what anyone says. It's not what it is when you're 20, and I don't think a lot of people know that. And nobody told me it was coming. It is what it is. Anyway, people are learning about this only because it happens quite a bit often that I'm on these long ass calls and I just have to kind of be like, yo, can I go pee, please? So, anyway, not that it's like to be weird with it. It's just kind of, I don't know, one of those things that keeps coming up in my life. Anyhow, let's go back to you, though. Um, you've done a lot of things in the last few years. And especially this year, it seems like it was a very big year. So let's talk about the pre COVID and then move into what happened since COVID, because you seem to have been fucking busy this year, is all I can say.
Pre-COVID, I would say the last couple of years before COVID, I've been working with Gabby Harvey real close. That's little sis at the same time, and like uh, I took her upon myself with Sauce, and we really developed like her whole like you know sound. She helped me develop my sound, and we kind of grew like like a symmetry, and then Sauce also learned, cut his teeth with the whole dot connecting because he's been a dot connector his whole life, and like he started doing that now with the whole beats and the music and the artistry and all that. And right before COVID, it surmounted up to like us preparing projects and this like that. Notably, my Drop Glass 3 projects, which the first two Drop Gods projects were just instrumental projects, and this one was the first one where
When
I
did that
wanted
come
to.
out?
Well, it's still in the process of coming out. It's basically all the songs that I have
Okay.
on my Spotify page, all the ones that are there that are not part of the beat tapes, that are actual songs like Smile. Smile is on Drop God 3. That
Okay, so that's like your track on an album in the way that like any one of the other producer DJ dudes would put together their own album collecting artists in the city and doing
correct,
a thing with it.
correct, correct. And
Okay, fresh.
Sauce
So
pretty
Smile is
much,
a big tune though.
yeah, yeah. Sauce A&R that brought all that together. Like, and then what we did pre-COVID, literally like from like early December to like actually like late November to like right before Christmas. Like just like maybe like 20 odd days, I would bang out like 10-hour days where I'd bring in like two artists a day and try to do two records, three records with each, and just to like create a pool of records that we picked from each show to release and stuff. It's crazy. We did like I think we had a total of like 35, 37 records, and so far we've released eight. You know what
Okay.
I mean?
I've
So
I definitely have heard a whole bunch of your stuff. Honestly, in the pool of things, I don't go that deep as much as Spotify. I'm like, yo, there's a whole lot on a Spotify. There's tracks and there's a lot of beat stuff. Can I just say for your beats,
yeah,
I
man.
was walking up the street, I bust into a freestyle. I just lasted for like I don't know 20 minutes. It was just like your beats kept changing and like I couldn't stop, man. So let me tell you about what I loved about your beats. I'm not just a shit talker. I'm the kind of guy that likes it when like every little 4 bars, a little change up happens, a little something goes down to flip it up to keep it alive. I like it when the person who creates the beat thinks a little bit ahead of time about structure and like look. So I do hip hop karaoke, or I did back when that was a thing, right? And I will never forget the first time I heard the instrumental version of Ain't Nothing But a Gangster Party. It is not like the most interesting and riveting fucking instrumental. It really is Pac and Snoop that carry that entire fucking track, and that beat is
Totally.
like, whoa, that's actually not actually that. Like, you might love the song, but like without Pac and like just that instrumental, there's nothing going on there. Some of these beats are really kind of like whatever, whatever. But your shit was like full. I know it's versatile. So I noticed that you released them in groups of three, for the
Yeah,
most part. There was also
yeah,
some singles I saw, and I like the fact that each of these groups of three seem to be kind of set up to represent particular sounds or vibes
correct,
or styles put
correct.
together. I like your techno shit a bunch. That one was fun as fuck. I don't know if techno is the right term. I'm terrible with that.
I
They
know
all
what
get
you mean.
mad at me.
No, but yeah, it's a loose term still. No,
So yeah, why don't we talk a little bit about like what you're doing with that and why 3 tracks and a few of these choices you made and what you're actually hoping to do with these beats and stuff.
the singles that you see out, those are part of the rollout for Drop Glass 3. These what I wanted to do originally was like a regular album rollout. COVID made us adapt into the never ending rollout to see like eventually what we're doing while we're in the stands. It's almost like a stasis,
Mm.
like transit we're in, but it's not dead. We're still putting out stuff and it's stasis, but at the same time, I started putting out little beat packs. Those are the little 3 packs that you see, and they're all themed. No red lights is how I felt when COVID hit. And I said no red lights. So I put out a three beat pack, and I put that out there. And it's writing music. It's all beats that I pictured that could be good for writing music.
So like
Um,
I got it, cause you gotta understand, you're inherent on this shit.
mm,
I'm not a beat maker.
mm,
Everything about being a beat maker, how you would market yourself, how you would do all this shit, producer, whatever the right term is. I'm blanket statementing it for the sake of conversation, but I recognize what you said before. Um, but like why? I mean, like, I don't know, cause you have some dudes who's putting shit on SoundCloud with fucking tags in it. You have some shit that's going out there. Like, people basically could just steal your shit. Like, I could just load your
yeah,
shit on my Twitch right now. Although it'll shut
yeah,
down Facebook.
yeah,
Facebook has your back. They'll block you. They'll
yeah.
block me from doing that. But like,
Honestly,
is this your intent with these beats? Like, are they
yeah,
for people?
yeah. Yeah, because they don't have nothing saying they have the exclusive rights to it. I by default have the exclusive rights. Go and enjoy. If it pops, like you're definitely gonna hear from some type of lawyer, like, and it's not gonna be on an aggressive front. It's just gonna be like, hey, congratulations, you've sold fucking 50,000 copies. You're lit. And if I like the song too, I'm like, bro, that's lit, but you owe me money. And let's do
That's
this, and let's break bread, and like, well, here I got, and here's another pack. You know what I mean? And let's get into the studio. You know what I mean?
yo,
But like, yeah,
but
I'm
y'all
I'm,
hear
try- I'm
what
trying to I'm trying to put myself out there.
yo, but it's nuts that you're doing this, right? Cause yo, like just hear what he just said, yo. Cause there's rappers right now that are probably tripping, going like, I don't have beats right now. And Don Dada, is that how I say it? Is it Don Dada? Don Dada over here is like, yo, I put out these beat packs. Use them. If you get famous, pay me after. Don't ever talk about how nobody's giving back to the city ever fucking again. Okay, never. You hear the man right here literally put out effectively a pixel pack or whatever fuck T-Pain did there with his free sample royalties. He's put it out there. Everybody listening to this, go follow Don Dada's fucking Spotify and shit. I can link it in a second when he's talking again. Make sure you buy his shit on iTunes just to show love. I don't know if it's on iTunes, but if it is, do all the fucking cool stuff, because what he just did
Definitely.
is gave you an opportunity to like fucking flex on that shit. If it's on TikTok, go make some TikToks on that shit. Make his shit go fucking
It's all there.
viral.
It's all there.
You hear that? Go on TikTok, everybody, and use Don Dada Beats and go rap some shit. You have the man's permission to go have fucking fun with it, okay? That is incredible for all of us to
Exactly.
hear.
Exactly.
Yo, literally,
Tag me, and I'm
Spades.
reposting everybody. Like,
Do you hear that? My man Spades just went really. He just fucking lit up in his mind. And a lot of people are going to respond well to that, dude. Yo, we'll link you to beats after, Spades. Don't worry about that. I'm going to fucking put them right now for the people there. I have your page open. So you can just see it there. You'll see the names. You can fucking probably find them. And as he said, if you tag him, he's going to reshare what we do. So you can absolutely be sure you're going to see me spitting on one of these little fuckers for a minute and getting some fucking TikTok clout in at some point. Yo, Willie's tripping about this. Dude, you don't even understand how many people out there right now are paying like Amino Domini stacks and shit for like rights to a bunch of shit everyone else has, when they could effectively be kind of coming to see you for the same thing and keeping
well,
it
well,
local.
well, yeah. I mean, they can come see me for the rights, and this. Like, some people like would want, like I'm using these beat packs as something that I don't sell these as exclusives. These are always going to be something that people can go out and this and do something big. And if like yeah, and if I get a little Nas X who comes out and makes a fucking #1 hit, obviously like we'll figure out something. You know what I mean? But
So I have a question.
I'm not worried
You,
about that. You know what I
you're
mean?
the, you're a beat maker.
Mm,
I'm not a beat maker. I
mm.
think I understand terms. Everybody in here is rappers and shit. Plus, Golden Jenny. Shout out Golden Jenny for her fucking dope ass comments. She's been making this fucking lit chat too. I just want to shout them out, man, because all of their comments pop up on the screen and it just shows people's actually watching this shit the whole way through. Because when we
Like
clip
that.
this after, it's going to be lit. So thank
I
you
like
all
that.
for being here. That's fucking fire, honestly. But let's break down licensing. I don't think people understand licensing and copyright.
Ah,
If you can give us some like a little tutorial on that, I guarantee you this clip alone is going to be the most valuable thing the channel has put out in terms of education, because you would know this shit probably better than any of us.
I'll definitely put my insight to that. Licensing royalties. A lot of it is in stages. A lot of it is in layers once again. Um, the first layer meaning you pay already what you do, which is what you think is free is you paid it for the disclaimer on TikTok to use what they already paid other distributors to have the music on there to use the music. You can spit on it and it's free and it's no problem. You go viral with that thing. We don't mean nothing. You know what I mean? Now, there's another license. You want to download the beat and you want to spit on it and you want to just put it on your SoundCloud. It goes and it gets you 150,000 plays and you already monetize your page. I don't care about that even. You know what I mean? Because I don't consider that one of the major distributors. But if it's something you're gonna go and you're gonna drop on, say, Spotify, Apple, this like that, that's a licensing fee.
Mm.
But then if you want to make it part of your project now, like it's something that it's not like you're saying remix. It's not like you're saying because I titled these pieces. You know what I mean? You would in order for you to put it, it would have to be the remix. You know what I mean? And I'll just
So hold
approve
up.
it.
I can go through and I could take one of your songs right now, theoretically, and put it on
Right.
Spotify if I title it as a remix, and you can approve that and say it's all good in the hood?
I'll tell you why. Because you're connecting me, my profile on mine, and I'm sharing the royalties with you.
Amazing. I just didn't even know that that was an option for people out there. Cause
I'm
yo,
building I'm building a catalog, but then if you really want it as an instrumental, you know what I mean? You want that specific song as a beat because you would have to pay for the release of it that I only own the instrumental now to make money off because I already put it out. You know what I mean? It's already out, the beat. So I'll make all that and you're buying me out of those rights and which I don't relinquish publishing, but you want to buy me out of like say the Spotify like that. That's a whole other scenario out of this the streams and this and like that
mm,
because you wanna put it on
cause
your
yo,
profile and stuff. But no,
something.
I'm out here to work with people, man.
Nah, I hear what you're saying, dude, and I think it's interesting because something I learned about samples and shit is you have to clear samples twice. Is I don't think a lot of people know that you have to clear
Fact.
samples when the
Layers.
beat maker guy fucking sells it to the artist. That sample clearance one because the composition usually has a name at that point. The beat that you're buying is an original composition that has a name and shit. It's part of like the actual terms and stuff. Then when you release it as a song, it's a new thing because you've now
So
added a whole layer. So now the sample owner has to go through the clearance cycle a whole second time or whatever, that whole shit, to get your
100%.
recording of the track out. Um, Yo, we have somebody that just said this interview is making me feel like starting to learn how to make beats. Another fire interview. Fucking love that comment. Shout out
Inspiration.
iBeam2303. That's fucking dope, dog. That's a great moment here for us. That's all I'm trying to say. Um, Dude, that's so fucking nifty that like we're like talking about this. This is my favorite part of these interviews is this kinds of conversations. So what
Fact.
is publishing? How would you define the publishing? That's the master's one, correct?
That's when you own your master's publishing. It's it's when you hold domain over what you do with your songs and how you can perform and what to release and whether you own them in totality or in majority, which is 51% or more, it puts you in the position of direction, meaning you decide what to do with these masters and songs and this and what to omit. Because sometimes you don't want to be part of something, but like the label might force your hand and do it because say you're in a situation where you don't own that. That's the difference.
So just to be clear, to summarize, publishing or masters, when you own the masters, like what Lil Wayne is selling, is the right to
Uh-huh.
distribute effectively. And
Uh-huh.
whoever owns
Correct.
51% or more has the right to
Correct.
distribute. And I
And
believe there
collect.
is a
And
copyright related to that. But there's a second copyright that's a songwriter copyright that cannot be sold based on Canadian and US copyright law. That would be the one of you as the composition guy of it. This I found out because I actually fucking Googled this shit because I wanted to
that's
find out how to
crazy.
credit people correctly, right? I don't actually fully know the percentages. One day I'm just gonna
Mm,
backlog pay people. Anyway, if
mm,
ever money comes in, I'm backlog paying. I told my
mm,
producer that straight up.
mm,
That's what it is. I'm paying him now for licensings. But like basically there's like a second copyright that plays into this all right that has to do with who wrote the shit. So what I learned is my dude Chris Chrome did an ad lib, but he wrote the ad lib in his delivery. He just got 33% of the fucking songwriting, half of it, because then the producer's half of it, if I'm not mistaken. That's how
mm.
I understand it. Like 50% goes to the lyrics and the songwriting, and 50% goes to the production and the instrumental side of it all. And this is not sellable. This is just who the fuck wrote it gets this
Yeah,
copyright, and that's it. That's all. And
yeah.
however that's why you end up with like 15 fucking songwriters, because dude can just say a word, and that technically counts in how this shit is put together. Am I correct in how I just said that?
Yeah, yeah, man, and like a lot of people might be credited as writers because of like who's in the sample, who's in. Some people like some people got a piece of because of the A&R that they're on there. You know what I mean? They get included into the writers. It's a very intricate layer of the publishing game, the crediting.
I just think it's worth people like I don't know, just know that it is complicated. Like and it
Mm,
even gets complicated with
very
copyright.
complex.
Like
Very complex.
take say a music video. It's not just the song that's copywritten in the music video. The set design is copywritten. The choreography is copywritten,
Yeah.
as in any dance moves and shit that you see are copywritten. Any logos, blah 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 blah
Yeah.
blah, all of that shit. There's so many copyrights in place that people like often violate fair use because they don't actually, let's say, review all of the elements that
Hmm.
are copywritten inside of a particular video, which is why it's so much safer to just fuck with audio. You can actually review all the elements in a song pretty fucking quick, right?
Yeah.
Um, anyhow, so just the fact is that the world is that kind of complex, and every artist should definitely look into that shit, in my opinion. But it's also important to understand that stuff because dealing with a guy like you, this is basically like your fucking bread and butter at the end of the day, is these kind of licensing agreements and how
100%.
all this works.
100%.
All I have to say, the man is giving out basically free beats for you to use, which is fucking amazing and such a like a great thing. And I'm you.
We make money together. You know what I mean? Like when you guys upload these things and you link me, I see it. You don't link me, that's when I'll send you. Be like, hey, bro, link me. Like I'm not out here. Like, what the fuck? Take it down. Link me. Then if you don't link me, then we'll take it down. But like, you
Yo,
put up something like a remix on the beat. You write Don Dada. Like this song, blah blah blah, remix.
so we have a
And
question from the audience. So I want to get back to that because I love what you're doing, dude, and I have to give you even more flowers, dude. You fucking blowing my mind. But we did get a question from Algo Cerise, and it was based on like if somebody's inspired today and now off of this interview to get started in the world of beat making, what would you recommend them to start using, and how would you recommend them to go about it?
Honestly, like anybody else would have like started by telling you like what program to use and this like that. That you'll find out on your own, like on YouTube, what to do and all this. But I'll give you something that they won't teach you on YouTube and they won't teach you in any like engineering school or anything like that. Dissect what you want and what you like, what makes you tickle. Dissect what makes you tickle in music. Find out what that is and make sure you can replicate that. Then make sure how it measure. Make sure you can find out what its counterpart is in pop music, and I'm
Oh,
telling you, you match these two together, man, and you're a dangerous fucking object. You're sharp when it comes to shit, and everything else is just blah blah blah. It's just watch a few fucking YouTube videos.
so if I understand your answer correctly, because Algo Cerise followed up with what tool? It's that you'll find the tool for you by looking online. There really isn't a one answer fits all. It probably depends on your goals and what you're trying to do. And honestly, here's the thing about tools. I use Reaper because it's $60. So if you can beat that anywhere, I don't know, but it's $60 for Reaper, right? So like in my opinion, if Reaper does the job and it's 60 fucking dollars, why are you gonna spend more money until you're like real
Exactly.
committed? If you know there's an ROI, look at other shit. Also, I believe Pro Tools offers the 16 track basics for free. And so basically everybody's doing the same freemium game now, right? I'm sure Ableton's fine because she has Ableton, but at the end of the day, it's going to be a matter of learning your tool. Like all of these things are programs, so I've never really got that deep into production, but I do work for a software company, and at the end of the day, this shit's just fucking software. So every
Right.
software has its own unique interface because copyright, they have to, and everybody lays shit out uniquely, slightly different, but in a similar way. And effectively, it's just sitting there and it's taking the different tools, going on YouTube. How do I insert? And Ableton's a big name. I like Ableton is a big fucking name. So there's tutorials all over for that. What tool do you use though? Because the peeps want to know.
Man, I've been through them all except one. I haven't been with FL Studio like Fruity Loops at any point, just because its interface never just wired in. In the beginning, I was using Reason for a while throughout its versions, two, three, four. After four, that's when I went from a PC to a Mac, so I migrated towards Logic. I started using Logic Pro. I since then, like I kind of played around with like Ableton and other people's rigs and things like that, but always fell back on my Logic setup always for some reason. It's just a nice workflow. I make the beats in there, I record my artists on there, I mix master in there, just everything in one shot.
So you have a studio at home, or do you have a studio somewhere else?
Uh, well, I mean, going back right before COVID, I had my booth at my house. I had a booth set up right where my
Yeah,
living room should be. You know what I mean? A full blown fucking 10 foot by 12 foot fucking fully isolated booth with the whole setup, and eventually moved that to Sauce's basement, and then we did it out of there. That's when the job god sessions began. We moved that booth in, and from there we started the job god sessions, and then
the what sessions? Oh, sorry, you're
the
right.
job
Yeah,
god sessions for
right,
for
right.
the
So, do you use any samplers or drum machines? Is something Willie Scandals would like to know.
um honestly, everything I do is like on my laptop, man. I even sometimes stop using MIDI controllers, but yeah. And when I started using workstations, which was like analog keys. I've definitely used drum pads. I've definitely used MPCs. I've used there's like kind of like Chinese made samplers. Like I don't even think they're probably even a known brand or anything like that. Where you kind of load like SD cards and stuff inside and like start pressing stuff around. And I've dabbled with stuff like that, but in terms of workflow, I always revert back to like my laptop, man. Like
Mm.
I've had like 8 hour flights where like I'm insomniac, dude, like and everybody's passed out like from 2 a.m. to 8 a.m. I'm going through three tracks on my headphones, you know. So
Ooh, that's an
I didn't have
interesting
yeah, I
question.
didn't have space for MIDI keyboards or anything like that.
So I love what you said about that because it's actually again back to it's like a utilitarian approach. Like what's the simplest and most effective way to make it happen? But I love the fact that you were willing to try out and use all the different things that were available to you, right? Like that's also very fascinating. What about like headphones for folk? What would you recommend as a budget friendly headphone model people could rely on? I'm just asking for myself because I'm super into that shit.
Honestly, I wouldn't be too well versed to answer the question based on a certain model, but from my experience, uh, if you go for Sony monitors in the range of like 40 to 70 bucks, I find those are bang for buck, big time.
Okay,
And a tad step higher from that would be like, the 150 to $200 range Sennheisers. But more
fresh.
than oh yeah, but other than that, it'd be overkill, man. Because I've seen $1,000 headphones. I've heard them. They're amazing. Don't get me wrong. Like they're amazing. But the $700 overhead for the 15% increase in performance is not it. Man.
Yo, we just hit 18 viewers, dude. That's like one of the highest numbers we fucking
Fucking
had at
love
this
it.
point, dude. This is
Fucking
an
love it.
amazing conversation.
Fucking
So
love
let's
it.
go back to COVID times. So not to say that they're fun times, but they're real times, and
Right.
this
Yeah.
created a transition. I see
Yeah.
you adapted to the three, B pack thing. We talked about that for
Yeah.
everyone new here. Straight up, man's giving out free beats, not necessarily free. We discussed it. Go rewind after and watch it. But like, you'll see what I mean. Like, Mans is actually out there putting in work for the city like that, which is just truly incredible. Also, there's probably other people doing it, right? I'm gonna assume you're not the
100%.
only fucking person,
100%. Oh hell
which
no.
means
There's so many
maybe
people out here.
maybe instead of jacking YouTube beats from strangers, go jack Montreal beats from people who want to be jacked from. That's all I'm trying to say. Maybe that's like a smarter approach. But what happened with COVID then? How did you adapt your life? What flipped up there?
Ah man. I mean myself like striving through is doing graphics and doing like sound works and odd jobs here and there. So obviously like I kept myself going and just busy through the times and trying to like see what's coming up on the horizon in terms of like out there, you know what I mean? What's happening. And then during that meanwhile, always keeping the mantra, man. I told myself, no matter what happens in life, that's years ago. Like, no matter what, as long as I keep like making sure that I'm getting better at my craft, at any low that I hit, I'm gonna have that to hold on to at least.
Mm.
That I'm always sharp with my craft. My craft meaning like everything I do, my doings, like from production to music to paintings to bettering my knowledge to all of that. You know what I
All right,
mean?
let's talk about bettering your
Yeah.
knowledge real quick. Yo, I'm
Yeah.
into reading books. I've read 59 books this year.
Mm,
I have to read one more book by
mm,
midnight tomorrow to hit my goal
mm,
of 60.
mm,
That's one of my ways. Podcasts, I guess, is another
mm.
fun way for knowledge. YouTube's is a huge one for me. What do you do to learn? How do you learn?
I'll give you a slight like a general oversight evolution of how I used to do it. When I used to be young, I used to read certain type of stuff because like that was my access of books. But I never got into the point where, like you said, I'm reading all kinds of books like that. Because a lot of people suggest me, oh, you should read this book and that book. And I swear, like I wish I had that little flame to actually grab that book and do it. Cause sometimes I know it's a fucking dope book, but sometimes it's like I'll download a fucking 35-page PDF of like something like a publishing that I want and read about it. But where it really started back in the days is I kept Yahoo as my homepage, and back in the days, it had always like fresh headlines, and you can customize what you want. So I put like 4 or 5 general topics of headlines that I wanted, and every morning I would open up and log in, and I would read every single fucking article in there, front to back. So basically like 20 articles, short written, all of them maybe like 1,000 words. So 25,000 words every morning, give or take.
Yo, that's amazing.
And then it evolves to like bulletins and forums and channels and things like that. You know what I mean?
Honestly, I do know what you mean. I mean, I didn't read a lot of books my first year on the quest. It was slower.
Mm-hmm.
At first I went from like YouTube. YouTube was a huge starting point, but then along the way I realized I prefer reading. It's faster, faster for me at least. I went from like articles and stuff, but I found like a lot of it is finding the right channels or actually understanding how to Google and learning how to better vet your sources. And I find books is huge for me because books is like, you don't just like fucking publish a book with
Mm-hmm.
information. You gotta have sources. So I'm a lazy learner, and I just assume that the guy in the book read more shit than me, and that I could go read all that shit, or I could go read a bunch of books on a similar topic and trust that the 8 or 9 things that they all mention are the really good shit. And then that's how I like kind of find commonalities. And so it requires a lot of book reading, to be honest. It takes probably a long time to build that data set, but that's been my approach now, is to kind of like, roll with it like that. But I just think it's fascinating. Do you use shit like Skillshare and all that kind of crap?
No, not even, man. Like I, I'm more into like I would almost describe myself when it comes to what you're talking about right now specifically is like I'm an introverted think tank of certain ideas. You know what I mean? But yeah,
Mm.
I should get into whole Skillshare shit.
I mean, Skillshare, it's kind of really entry level stuff. So depending on the topic, it's really useful. I mean, you're kind of got like some mastery level shit going on. Yo, like, I'm not gonna lie, we were having a very fascinating and riveting chat right before
Mm-hmm.
this call came in. It got me super psyched for this interview, right? Because like we were discussing stuff that I love, like virtual reality. So, yo, before COVID, before work from home, I had these epiphanies in my life, and I'm calling it like
Right.
the third phase of industrialization that's changing music. And part of it is like I've had a couple of
Metaverse.
realizations, right? Like I know people think COVID's gonna end and like live music's gonna come back real cool, and it will for
Mm.
famous and rich people. But for a guy
Right.
like me, yo, where's the bars at? What bars do you
No.
think are
Yeah.
surviving this
Done.
shit? All the places that were gonna hook us up before, like, yo, all the classics are closing, like that, right? So,
Yeah.
I mean, sure, maybe at some point there will be an ecosystem that comes back to life that will support live shows and be this fresh ass experience for things, right? But I don't think it's gonna be like fast. I mean, it could be like 2023 even before
Easily.
like
Easily.
live shows come back to life. So you're like a really smart guy, and I'm curious to know, I guess, your thoughts on where music is gonna go over the next few years and how you see this playing out.
Well, I see something already emerging called the metaverse, which is Internet 3.0. You know what I mean? And this is where it's going to be comprised. A lot of people have different theories on it. You know what I mean? And like my theory is that it's gonna be comprised of small pods of lobbies and rooms, and they'll be divided the same way like our provinces or whatever are divided, but in terms of like topics, you know what I mean? The same way they're doing this whole um, net neutrality shit where they're censoring certain things where you got to pay to have access, which is layers once again. You know what I mean? You
Yes.
pay to access the first layer, then you pay another fee to access the second layer, then you pay a fee to access certain
Yo,
avenues
you
within
wanna
that.
you wanna hear a crazy layer that I discovered just in
Yeah,
terms of like, cause basically what we're saying is price layering in a lot of ways,
right,
right? So
right.
like, I'm starting to realize how expensive it is to hit that next level, and there are a
Mm-hmm.
lot of services, but the number of services, it's like a lot of services that you kind of need to end up with. But there's this new social media called Clubhouse, and it's kind of
Yeah,
popping off in Android in Apple land. And I'm
yeah.
seeing a lot of musician types I know on it. And I'm not trying to like, kind of put the cat in the bag or whatever. It's not like you can't just get in. You need to know somebody type shit.
Right.
So maybe somebody watching is there. But the fact is that this shit is on Apples and it's not on Androids. And I'm like,
Mm-hmm.
yo, that's interesting. You got some shit that's
Mm.
like, it's kind of
There's
like
already a divided up.
popping off like that, but it's in an
Right.
Apple ecosystem. And the why I bring it up is not because I'm trying to like, promote anything. It's just this, it was the first time it ever felt like I was like in the wrong situation, was not having the like device that could even support this opportunity that presented itself. And maybe this turns into nothing, maybe it's just niche, but I couldn't even investigate it. And that was like a layer where now I'm like, shit, now I think I need to get a fucking Apple product.
Mhm.
Oh man, what am I gonna do? Because what am I gonna do if that ends up being a huge thing? It's like you need Apple or you're missing out. And then it's like layers like that. So I think it's cool that you're bringing that up, especially with the software as a service economy taking over fucking everything. Like in this idea of a metaverse where the internet's all connected and shit, right? I mean, my theory that I'm calling it is music as a service. So I'm sitting here on Twitch, right? And I'm not asking for donations right now, but any motherfucker could just hit a subscribe button right now and subscribe to me on a monthly. And I'm like, yo, that's what my company does to sell software. It's the same thing. And
Yeah.
now, in theory, if you come out here and you create your music here, so obviously I'm not gonna do this like for like music that's not shit that I own, but like yo, my man's has sent me beats that I own. I can just kind of go live and use these beats and like fucking go ahead and make albums and shit. In theory, people can then subscribe to me and shit. That changes the nature of like music marketing at an inherent fundamental like business market shift, right? And it kind of goes into spaces. So if you look at how VR is manifesting, it's just that. It's spaces and private rooms and private events and all of this kind of shit.
Yeah.
And Facebook's working on fucking a VR thing, right? That's why
Yeah.
they're pushing Oculus so fucking heavy and making it
Mm-hmm.
cheap and affordable and undercutting the world. Because I guess it's next year, but they drop their Horizon, which is just that, spaces, and it's such a weird world, right? Like, but it kind of also just reminds me of something Merkur Miyagi when he made a post. I don't remember what his post said. I remember what I took away from it, and that is that the future of music is not going to have as many millionaires, but there's going to be a lot more people able to do it. So that made me have this epiphany. Yo, like I'm probably not actually like I could make 1 million per se, but I'm probably actually able to make 100,000 a year if I play my cards right
Mm-hmm.
in a very reasonable amount of time,
Mm-hmm.
because of the way the market is shifting. That if you consistently create a quality product that people are attracted to, you can grow an
Fact.
audience, and therefore you have web traffic. And the second that you have web traffic, boom, you have a thing. You are now an as a service product because your service is you, and it's fucking weird. So all these kids that are influencers and shit, they're not like. So I saw this old man argument. I call it old man. Anything that's an old man, old way of thinking thing. That's how I coin it. Where they're like, yo, all these people are becoming influencers to push their shit, and I'm like, I don't think it's that they're becoming influencers. I think it's that like everybody that's ever gonna have a career in the future is an influencer in some way.
Yeah.
I don't know if you agree with that kind of line of thinking or off.
In a certain way, in a certain way or not, like it was always headed that way where everybody will be able to showcase their avatar. You know what I mean? Meaning
Mm,
like who they can be and all that. Like that was always something that would be it. Back like 500 years ago, they couldn't do that, and the best way that they did it is they got portraits painted of them, and they fucking got their monograms fucking sewed into their fucking clothing. You know what I mean? That's the only way they could express that. You know what I mean? And now this era now for sure, we're able to be narcissistic, you know what I mean, and exhibit that fucking behavior vividly. You know what I mean? To me, it's nothing new. It's just more apparent now. That's for sure.
That's really interesting. How do you see your world fitting into the future of all of this? I mean, you're probably not in a bad position because you can do a lot of your shit remote with like beat making and probably engineering as well, right? Like you can just do that from home. But do you see yourself being able to migrate into something like Twitch or a virtual reality space and how you could create a persona around yourself as opposed to? Do you feel like? Because yo, here's a huge thing I noticed. Beatmaker tags got cool. I know it sounds whack, but let me tell you something. There's quite a few of them where I was even talking to my like producer dude, and I'm like, dude, you need a cool tag. Go find like a hot Montreal artist to make like a fucking cool tag. You know what I'm saying? He's like,
Hmm.
good point. Cause yo, like when you hear like that, if you're Metro, don't trust it, I'm gonna shoot you. It just makes you want to fucking turn up just hearing that tag. You know what I'm saying? So along the way, obviously the producer has now become a little more relevant and a little more important. Do you feel like we can go full circle at hip hop and almost bring the producer back to the forefront and the rapper into a
Hundred
secondary
percent,
position?
and that's already beginning, and people like Metro Booming are already kicking that off. But the way I want to take it more is integrate that with the festival producer and put it together and evolve something out of the both, and create like a digital set where
Mm.
a live digital crazy set, and you create an exclusivity that like these sounds can only be heard ambiphonically through this room or lobby in the metaverse. Do you understand what I mean? And that's where you can charge or not charge, or you can say free show. And then, like I told you, while you're preloading, because like I already work with people who handle big APIs. You know what I mean? Like I'm talking about 50,000 square foot server rooms, shit like that to handle, things where there's a preload, like the show's preloading, and I'm like, fuck, what are we gonna do when there's a 30-minute preload? You know what I mean? When somebody puts their VR headset on, I'm
Mm.
like, fuck it, we put them in a fucking car, you know what I mean? And you put them in the merchandise lobby, and which is the fucking, the merchandise iPad while he's sitting on the way to the show. You know what I mean? And it loads, and actually like in a VR world you're headed to a place, and boom, you pull up to the fucking arena. Then that's when you gain control of your joystick again, you know what I mean? And you head to your designated seating area inside that arena.
Dude.
And then you move your head around, and the sound is still ambient with your movement, so like the sound is technically coming out of those big speakers inside that show.
Yo, y'all don't understand
Imagine the
like how
possibility.
big what he just said is. Yo,
The
I
metaverse.
do imagine the possibility. Look, anybody that knows me knows I'm a huge VR advocate. I went so far, and this is again not to plug it, but just to validate how deep I love it. I bought an Oculus, right? And then I went into Outspace VR and I did an open mic in there and I recorded that and we used that footage in a music video just so I could show rappers visually that this is a real fucking thing that can happen today,
Yeah.
right? Is it good? Yeah, no, I still can't figure out how to deal with
It's
latency
in its
properly.
infancy. It's in its infancy. That's why guys like Travis Scott did one of the most like displays, the best displays so far. He used the Fortnite engine to create his show, and like it was grandiose. You know what I mean? But like it's still on
Mm.
screen. It's still this. Even if you had a VR headset on, it's nice and all that. But I really want to take it to the level where like it's majestic. You know what I mean? And if it's fully immersive, and then that merch you buy and all that, like it's set up to your credit card, it's set up to all that, it's set up to your banking. Like yo, that merch you buy is exclusive merch that like time lapses. So like when you log on, like you get to buy exclusive time lapse merch that's shipped to you the next day, thanks to Amazon or whatever. You know what I mean?
You know what's even crazy is I don't know how much it's going to even need to attach to physical merch. And I'm saying that because I'm on Twitch over
Mm,
here, right?
mm,
And right now, you can create custom emotes. So I paid dude on Fiverr, and I have two of them available now. We're working on getting the other ones ready. I don't know what they are yet, but
yeah,
motherfuckers who subscribe to my channel get the exclusive rights to use those emotes anywhere on Twitch.
okay.
So like basically people can pay me money right now to use digital stickers that are exclusive to an active subscription on my account, which is fucking nuts when you think about it because it ties exactly into what you're saying. And here's the thing, I didn't think this shit mattered to me. I didn't until I'm in the chat and motherfuckers are using the fucking sticker and I want to use the sticker. But then, yo, my homeboy Lamef has a fucking cool one, and I like his little mic drop one. And I'm like, yo, I want to be able to rep Lamef's channel over there and shit. And I'm just sitting here going, bruh, like my shit's a knowledge nugget. It's a little gold nugget with a cap on that says knowledge on it, right? Like Spade just used it in the chat. So like the fact is you can kind of build this, and this is basically the infant stages of what you're describing a futuristic model of.
Yeah.
So I want to just like tell people that you are fucking tapping in to some core shit right now, because the truth about the world of video games that people don't like to admit is that the gamers on the internet who make the videos and have hundreds of thousands of views are a small percentage of the millions and billions of people that are the actual market. And the actual market determined that microtransactions and vanity wins. You know how you know? Fortnite. Yo, explain Fortnite's success. You can't unless you accept that that model is actually really popping with a lot of fucking people in a way that maybe AAA games that lead to disappointments doesn't resonate as well with people. Am I saying that this is an absolute factual thing? No. But you could like look at some trends and make some observations about what big number of people are interested in by following where all the dollars are actually made in a lot of industries like this. And let's be real, freemium microtransactions are absolutely the future of so much shit, because that's kind of like where all the money is. It's, you know, all the gaming studios in Montreal are because we're really good at mobile optimization as a city. That might be related to some of the bigger companies in Montreal that made a lot of people really good at mobile optimization and microtransactions. So a lot of the bigger named game development people like Bethesda and all these people, they really opened up shop here to leverage our ability to do conversions on microtransactions. And that's why a lot of these people opened up shop in our very city. So even our city is tied into this whole world of microtransactions and merch. It's actually a very Montreal thing, you could say, just based on that. Not necessarily exclusive, but it actually ties into where our software side of the world is on. Anyhow, I got off on a bunch of shit there. I mean, nobody fucking like. It's not like my girlfriend does not care about this shit. Okay, it's not often I actually get to talk to somebody who can like, you know, like care. You know. Anyhow.
Oh, that's.
But that's fucking dope, man. I really appreciate that.
I'm glad you had me over, man, on that shit, man. I'm glad we did all this, man. It's pretty fucking dope.
That's real cool. I feel like I'm definitely not sure where to take this conversation, which means it's like a good organic place to like, you know, maybe, you know, if you have any final thoughts that you want to share with the world and anything like that.
No, man, it feels, we burnt that to the filter, man. I like that, man. That like a good split rotation, you know what I mean? Fucking love it.
I mean, my dream is always to break 2 hours with this shit, because that's a good juicy conversation.
Oh,
we
wow,
over
we
2
did
hours.
That. I just seen
so
that.
we did that. We fucking good. Like the live is a little longer, but we had 2 hours 20 from about when we started, which is still fucking proper. I think you shared a whole lot of knowledge nuggets with us. You shared a lot of interesting things, especially about just leveraging the opportunities and resources around you instead of worrying about it, which is big facts. Oh, one more actual question.
Yeah, man.
Mobile app beat making programs. What are your stance on that shit?
Honestly, man, I've seen like some kids do genius shit with it. I'm not against any type of tool then that gets you to the final result. But no, honestly, on a personal level, I never fuck with any of that. Like just because of a workflow thing, it's one more thing. I gotta output, ship it to the thing, and then continue from there. So it's like.
Just be efficient with it.
Yeah.
And you got shit that's working for you, so why bother with, like, you know, I feel that. But yo, again, man, thank you for being here. Thank you all for watching too. It's fucking cool how many of you stuck around for this long. Yo, it's super encouraging for us, like, to keep going when we see that kind of shit. See in the chat, stay lit like that. Shout out all of you there. Like Algo Series, I saw your comments on reading. It just didn't really fit into what we were talking about, but I saw them. So big ups for lighting up the chat. Everybody out there is super fucking cool. For those that are watching this down in the future on YouTube and shit, links in description for all that stuff. Make sure you subscribe and like in whatever platform you're on, blah, 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 all that good stuff. Leave comments so down the line when the man is twice as popping. And yo, producers from Montreal's be getting Grammys and shit, so like everything's fucking possible for the future of this world, right? Yo,
hell yeah.
What is it? Don Dada and fucking who was the other one? Shit. What's his name?
You got a bunch
Dirt
of
Work.
dirt work. We got like they won or nomination. Not sure, man, but it's still
I
either
think I
way,
saw
man.
Dirt Work won on the Kanye song, or
And
nominated, but I could be wrong. I don't fucking know.
you got Young
Either way,
Troy also. You got a bunch of other guys, man. Yeah, but notably Kitchenada, like honestly, like on a heavy level, he's really elite. But yeah, Montreal's got its heavyweights, and it's crazy that they happen to be OGs too. So it's nice to see even the youngins that are coming up doing a lot of things. The new wave, new generation. Shout out to all of them for real. They are definitely carrying it, whether they don't whether people like give them that recognition or not. They are who will turn that next page. So
right. So yeah, again, shout out to everyone. Do make sure to fucking go out of your way to follow his shit. Just do it. Just make sure you guys do it. It's very important. That's all I'm saying. This guy's actually doing some cool shit. I learned so much about you, and I appreciate that about you.
yeah, man.
Um, and I would love to have you back again in the future for sure. I mean,
Likewise,
I know you got a
likewise,
lot of life to live in. There's a lot of money to be made in your world, and I look forward
likewise.
for you sharing. Cause yo, you are so liberal with that knowledge, dude. You're exactly what the fuck we want on here. And you know what? A lot of people were like, "Bro, you fucking making moves." I saw 3 people share this shit when they
Mm-hmm.
saw the live on Facebook,
Mm-hmm.
dude. So like, yo, you have a fucking influence out there that's remarkable. More people need to know your
I'm
name. Is all
humbled to
I'm
hear
trying
that,
to
man.
say.
I'm humbled to hear that, man.
And yo, we definitely gonna be telling people about your fucking Twitch moves down the line. Is all I'm trying to say. On that note, I do want to just give a special thanks to my patrons: Ismail Gadamsi, Chris Prado, Jonathan Barnes, DJ Black, Hurricanes, Linda Williams, and Scribble. Dope, support what we do. If you do support what we do, Patreon.com/behind that suit, and give there, and that would be real cool of you. Or if you're on Twitch here, that would be cool of you. I don't know. I'm just saying it for all the platforms. Anyway, thank you for being here. And on Twitch, we're going to go ahead and raid somebody, but live long and prosper, everyone.